if my counting is right, Senate did not agree on this controversial revenue allocation formula, the new one that is being proposed by the CRA. Of course, we understand that the CRA presented a report, their report to the Senate, and of course, senators came up with quite a number of amendments. I want us first of all to just help our viewers understand, and this I'll throw to you, Martin, in the interest of those who may not be understanding where the bone of contention could be coming from. What are some of the issues that you would say are the highlight of this new revenue allocation formula?
Serfine, the main issue is about population. But you know, what has happened is, you know, we are a country of last minute. Because sometime last year, I think September, October, November, we had, the CRA came up with this new formula. Because the one which was there, the time which it was supposed to function had expired. So they came up with a proposal, and I remember I did shows with the women rep for Isiolo and the CEO then of the CRA, one Mr. Aoko, I think Bernard. And all these issues came up. You know, they came up with a proposal because they were looking at the parameters and trying to see. They had carried out a survey, and the survey had indicated that they needed to review the formula, and they were giving more weight to certain factors, one among them being population. But the northern frontier counties were trying to argue that the vastness of the area should be a factor, the landmass. So the debate came up, we talked about it, and you know, as usual, being Kenyans the way we are, we forgot about it. So I remember engaging that women rep and other people, and we were advising them that it will make a lot of sense for them to try and lobby, to sit, get experts who would advise them. Then they come up with a common position, and they lobby the CRA before the issue goes to Senate. But they slept on the job. Now the formula is before Senate. So there is an argument, because weight, a lot of weight has been given on population, 18%. The land mass is being given 8%. So the struggle is, the moment you put a lot of weight on population, it means that certain counties are going to lose money, the money that they have been receiving, and other counties are going to gain. But you know, when you look at our history, we have what is called Sessional Paper number 10, which was brought by Tom Mboya in 1966, which said that we should invest in what they were calling the high potential areas. And you know, that is where the problem started, because the certain counties which were perceived not to be productive, they were denied funds. They were not able to get as much resources as they would have required. So that caused disparities. And you remember, we had the shifter war, we had the secession calls coming from northern Kenya, because people felt that they were not part of this country. So with the coming of the 2010 constitution, at least, and devolution, we were able to get some of those areas getting resources, and now being able to put up certain facilities which have only been existing in certain areas. So we need to be very careful as a country as we debate this issue, because you can now clearly see the polarization that is in Senate, because the people who feel they are going to gain, they are really pushing for the money. But the others who feel that they are losing out, they are feeling like they are being treated as second-class citizens. So we need to sit down and come up with a compromise. And I think I will give a proposal when we go ahead with the discussion.
Yeah, and we are really looking forward for that, because right here on Newscheck, what we like is we present a problem and propose a solution to it. But I'd like also to get your views on this particular subject, Mheshimiwa. Focusing on population as one of the issues, one of the, I would say, guiding factors when it comes to revenue allocation. Where do you sit on this particular debate?
Thank you. This is a very thorny issue that people are looking at it. When we talk of population, there are various dynamics that and parameters that guide populations. According to the latest demographic survey, which was done in 2015, when you look at the infant mortality rate, the Kenya's average infant mortality rate is around 42, 46, around 46 per 1,000. When you talk of it and you look at various counties, especially the counties that are marginalized, you're talking of northeastern counties, you're talking of coast counties, their infant mortality rate is very high. But at times, again, you look at it in terms of vis-a-vis the population. It is a smaller population with very high infant mortality rate, as compared to other areas, which you can talk of maybe places like within central Kenya, where you have infant mortality rate slightly lower compared with those other areas. So when you are deciding to say you want to put up infrastructure facilities for the people, a child who is in northeastern or coast is equally valuable like any other child who is in central. But at the same time, you must also look at it that even within the central itself, we have the rich and we have the poor. And then, as my colleague put it about the sessional paper, which was, I think it was 1965, not 66, number 10, which looked at resource allocations in terms of productivity within the country, which actually created many of these problems. And you can again have to link up that one with what happened within the post-election violence of the 2007, 2008. People are fighting over resources. And when you look at even the documents that came out of that, Agenda 4, Agenda 4 was supposed to address the issues that in terms of resource allocations, which was actually never solved out. So when you look at, when you are discussing about issues of population, issues of development, you must also look at it that equally, as much as our 2010 Constitution tried to address those marginalized areas through the Equalization Fund, the Equalization Fund never became effective. It is not. It is actually been misused. Because immediately after 2010 up to today, you don't have a law that is guiding on how the Equalization Fund is to be utilized. Honorable Kamuket recently came up with a bill to try and address that. That bill is not yet an act. You don't have regulations. You don't even have a board that deals with the Equalization Fund. Who is accountable? Because even the implementing authorities, because you are talking of having electricity, you are talking of addressing the issue of water, you are trying to address the issue of health within those what we call marginalized areas. But the way we've utilized that Equalization Fund, it leaves a lot to be desired. There is nothing tangible on the ground that you can point out today and say, Equalization Fund, since its inception, has done this within, let's say, Taita Taveta or Lakdera or Mandera, wherever place you name it, where the Equalization Fund was supposed to address. CRA has come up with a formula that is trying to look at how do we address these issues vis-a-vis using the population as one of the highest parameters. But you ask yourself, has CRA has it quantified the services that are, especially the default functions? If you are to give a certain service within Northeastern, how much would it cost? For example, if you are to do a hospital with the staffing, with all the SOPs within that place, has it been quantified by CRA? No. The answer is no. It's not been done there. So we're only creating, when you create formulas, you must also look at how are these formulas going to be addressed. How are these inequalities that are going to arise out of this formula that you've addressed? Because each formula that you come must have a negative effect. And that is what now these other senators who are feeling that when this formula is going to come and is going to be implemented, 19 counties are going to lose. How have we used the same formula to address the counties that are going to lose out?
Mm-hmm. And going by what is being said is that almost half of the 47 counties are going to be losing what they have been receiving initially.
Yes.
If we go as per this particular formula that has been proposed by the Commission on Revenue Allocation. But then, as this back and forth is going on, Martin, because it is a conversation that has taken quite some time, if you may ask me, the fifth time senators have not agreed on this particular formula. Today, all eyes actually on the Senate as we hope that finally they will, come to an agreement on this particular issue. But what has been happening in terms of impact at the counties, operating without cash for this while, in terms of service delivery, how much of a problem has that been?
You know, we have people who are very mechanical in the way they do their stuff. The courts have already ruled that when there is a stalemate, the counties can receive part of the money. So I don't know why Treasury cannot use that. The Supreme Court actually ruled on those issues. Two, the CRA formula is just a proposal. It's not cast in stone. And you know, even the amount of money that the national government gives to the counties, the CRA gives a proposal. And the courts, the Supreme Court has already ruled that it is not binding, it's just a proposal. So even this formula, it is a proposal. And the senators need to be very creative. I was trying to engage two of them last night from those two of those counties which are having issues. But you could see there is a lot of reluctance. They don't even want to listen to any proposal. So, you know, what we need to do is, you cannot say that Turkana, because they don't produce potatoes and they don't produce some of this stuff around here, they are not productive. You look at the oil that is in Turkana. You know, look at the water that the aquifer that is in Turkana. If you are to put infrastructure in Turkana to allow us to access that oil, to allow us to access that water, you know that can serve this country for a very long time. You cannot even quantify the wealth that will come out of it. Look at just Kajiado here. There are places, I've done quite a bit of work there, and you can see there are places they are producing enough food to even feed the entire Nairobi. But because they don't have proper infrastructure, because they have not been fully supported, you find some of those things cannot be able to reach the markets when they are supposed to. So you cannot unilaterally decide that because certain areas are not productive, in quotes, we deny them, we continue marginalizing them. And you know, when we were fighting for independence, the first fight was about resources. Two, we had two formations. We had Kadu and we had Kanu, the Majimboists. And you remember, the coast has been saying all through that they feel marginalized. And they were agitating for Majimbo. Part of the reason the Northeastern fellas wanted to secede, because they were feeling they were not getting as much as they should get from the center. So now we seem to be entrenching that and saying that, look, because these guys are not contributing in quotes. Because look at the port. How much money does the port of Mombasa contribute? And how much of that wealth is taken back to those people? So we need to strike a compromise so that nobody feels left out. My home county is Kakamega, and they are supposed to benefit almost 1 billion shillings. But you know, I will not want to marginalize somebody else out there so that we are able to get as much money. We need to also move with everybody else. When you look at the statistics, look at the numbers of 2009. You know, there were a lot of doubts about those numbers, especially for Northeastern. There was a lot of massaging of the numbers, especially Mandera. And that's why you can see the numbers have reduced. Because when you look at the demographics, and people who do statistics will tell you. Now, when you look at the current statistics, the one which came out, the 2019 census, there were a lot of question marks. Because you cannot tell me a county like Vihiga, the increase in population in 10 years was only 5,680 people. Yet in Ruiru here, a small place called Ruiru, the population grew by 1,000%. It's not possible. You know, it tells you the numbers were massaged. And you know, there was an amendment on the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics Act, quietly, that cabinet will be able to look at those numbers and make adjustments. So you see, when you look at some of those issues, you could understand now why those numbers were being played around with, why the numbers were being massaged, so that you can have resources allocated in a particular way. But you know, the remedy here would be take the 18% we are allocating, we are putting on weights on population, take the 8% we are giving on landmass, do a mean, and the mean is 13. So you allocate 13%, give weight of 13% on the population, and give 13% on landmass. Then you will have a compromise, so that the counties which are going to lose, they will not lose as much. The ones which are going to gain, they don't gain as much. Then you still have a compromise where the country remains one.
Would that solve the problem, though? Because there seems to be this feeling as if, you know, yes, these formulas may be rigid and may not be tailor-made to focus on our different uniqueness, even some you've mentioned, different counties being productive in different ways. So the formulas may not actually address these counties as much as they should if we apply them rigidly without focusing on the uniqueness of every part of the country. But is it even possible to come up with a formula that will really, really satisfy each and everyone in this country, each and every part of this particular country, and look at those differences and come up with a formula that can solve the problem once and for all? Is it even realistic, Martin?
You know, you must come up with some formula, because that is what the Constitution says. You know, the problem is we were very mechanical when we were doing our Constitution 2010. Mm-hmm. And there was also a lot of activism. And some of the things we put there were, they have challenges. But you know, look at what we have like affirmative action. When you go to school, you get girls are in school, boys are in school. But now we have allowed the women for 20 years to be able to get the women rep seat, which is an affirmative action seat. We have allowed women to be nominated when the numbers are not working. So, you know, that is affirmative action. They don't have it in America, they don't have it in Britain. But you see, we are trying to be innovative so that a group which is disenfranchised, and even the people with disability, we have allowed them to be nominated to go to parliament. They don't fight it out the way my brother Mheshimiwa fought and became an MP. Because we feel there are certain disparities which are disadvantaging them. So we allow them for a certain period of time to be able to come in. But you see, we are not saying that we stop the ones who are moving, going ahead, so that the other ones catch up. You only give them some little, you know, even in education, we allow people from marginal areas to go to the university with 1 or 2 points less as a form of affirmative action, even in terms of employment. So all those issues are trying to address those inequalities. And you will not run away from the fact, because the moment you try to lock those people out and deny them those resources, then the issues which they have been agitating for, they'll come back. We are now saying that we want to do BBI, we want to bring everybody together. But you can't bring people together when you are again denying them opportunities. So we need to sit very carefully. And the senators must be very creative, they must be reasonable. And it's not just about seeing the money and saying that, look, let us have all this money. Because when you go to some of those disadvantaged counties, you know somebody has to travel a distance of 300-400 kilometers to access a health facility. They have the challenges, the road network, you know. You take on a rough road, you know, and now you've seen, because of devolution, you can hear some of those places. For the first time, they have tarmac roads. For the first time, they have very nice hospitals. For the first time, they are able to do cesarean sections in public hospitals. So now, the gains which have come out of that, we want to reduce whatever they are having so that it disadvantages them. Then they remain where they have been. That will cause resentment and hostility.
All right. Martin, what you're describing is what some have actually gone to the extent of analyzing the difference between equity and equality. Looking at, yes, we want everyone to be equal, but the ones who are less, they don't have the advantage and they don't have the much opportunities to get to where others are. What then do you do to cushion them to ensure that they have the strength, they have the opportunities and the enabling environment for them to be equal in the society, which is a good thing. But then would you agree with Martin, Mheshimiwa, that we could just be going back on the gains that we have acquired since the inception of devolution in 2013? Because from where I sit, I believe these are some of the issues to do with equality or equity, depending on how you look at it, what devolution actually was trying to resolve. Could we just have missed the point along the way?
Thank you. First, I want to state categorically that unfortunately, we might also not be looking at what exactly are we talking about in terms of these resources. Because what the resource allocation to the counties is what is audited in the last audited accounts. When you talk of the last audited accounts, that is not what the government bases, what the national government bases on its resources, because what the government is collecting is not what they allocate, what is actually being budgeted for. because you only budget for the last audited accounts. Where the last audited accounts as we speak today is the 2016-2017 financial year. We are in 2020-2021 financial year. So what the budget that we are discussing here is not current. Is not current, what we are collecting currently. And that is why you will find that as much as we are bringing this debate, the senators should also have, the CRA should also have looked at, can we also be able to look at what is it that we are budgeting for? Because when you budget the last audited accounts, it means if there is delay in auditing, as we have seen the Auditor General now being recently appointed, yeah. So you have a backlog of auditing of those accounts. It is going to take time. The second issue that you should be able to look at, you've mentioned that some counties have seen development because you are able to do now cesarean sections. You are able to see tarmac roads for the first time. That is true, but it's not true to all the counties. Because what we've also seen in other counties is rampant corruption. That within those counties, we might be allocating, say, a county is gaining, but is it equitable? Is it percolating down to the common man? Is the common man going to feel that service? Are we, whatever we are trying to discuss as resource allocations, are those people who these services are meant to going to gain? I think that's an issue that needs to be looked at.
Focus on. Since devolution, the inception of devolution, we have seen counties receiving as high as 30% of revenues, national revenue. And this is actually higher than what the Constitution stipulates, because the Constitution provides that at least 15% of the national revenue should go to the counties. But yes, we've seen this particular percentage, which, if you look at what is happening currently, amounts to about 316.5 billion that is shared annually to the counties. Are we looking at the numbers and failing to focus on cleaning up the system, Martin? Because yes, we want more money, yes, we want more development and everything, but how are we utilizing the money that counties are receiving at this particular point? Could we just be focusing on the numbers and forgetting how the system runs, how this money is utilized? What should be the most important point when it comes to that particular balance?
Achieng, these issues of accountability, they are systemic and they are historical. The theft. When we started the system of devolution, most of the governors had either been MPs or they had been working in Nairobi. Some who had been in government, they moved from Nairobi with those bad manners. They learned how the national government, the way people had been stealing money in national government, they just took the same. And the former local authorities used to have what was called Latif. And with Latif, they did quite a number of issues. But it was only 2.5% of of the national revenues. Now, the Constitution says that we give a minimum of 15%. It does not have a maximum. And as Mheshimiwa Pokosa said, do we amend the Constitution so that the figures are based on current budgets, not on the last audited accounts? But it's them who do legislation. So that is a challenge that they need to take up. But in terms of accountability, there has been a lot of theft. But the theft is happening both at the counties and at the national level. Two, the counties have also overemployed. There was not a clear framework in terms of employment. Yeah, they have overemployed. Some of them have employed their girlfriends. That's a term that
is very rare in Kenya.
That's what they have done. Every other fellow who hangs around the governor has been given a job, irrespective of the qualifications, irrespective of their ability to perform the job. And they're earning so much money. And some of them, when you look around, they don't add any value. So you have a bloated workforce. You have money going into wrong priorities. Because in some of the places, what the governors are putting in money is not what really the masses out there would want, or it's not what adds value. And when we started, the concept about devolution was trying to make the counties as centers of growth. because by the time, now we are going to the 8th year after we started the system of devolution.
Yeah.
So by now, most of those counties should have established structures that would have allowed them now to be producing so much in terms of own revenues.
Have they done that?
They have not done that. In fact,
if you
they are
rate the
controlling.
They
They are collecting less money than the local authorities used to collect. So what does that tell you? It tells you there is a lot of theft. Most of that money that is being generated is being stolen because there is very little, and you can see on that formula that CRA is proposing, they have only put 1% for fiscal discipline. So it tells you even CRA does not value financial discipline, because why would you give only 1% for guys who are able to collect so much, for guys who are able to utilize their money well? So it tells you to them even the issues of accountability are neither here nor there. And you've seen how suddenly people who are struggling, quite a number of those fellas who either are governors or work in those local authorities, guys who are struggling, because we've been around with most of them. Suddenly you hear so-and-so has bought a chopper, so-and-so has bought a building in town, 300, 400, 500 million. Suddenly guys are awash with money, So, and even in those, and it's just happened, it's not only in particular counties, both in where people are making noise and even where they want more money. You will get, the money goes into those places, the fellas there sit, connive, they fix tenders, they do all sorts of things, and most of that money, instead of helping the people at the grassroots, it's brought back to Nairobi here, to either buy properties in Karen, to either buy choppers here, and that's why every other fella now is owning a chopper. So we need to strengthen the accountability structures, but that does not mean that it's an excuse for us not to give governors more money to do what they are supposed to do. Let's give them money, but let us also strengthen institutions of accountability. Let the MCS be able to hold their governors accountable. Let the Senate be able to do its job, because the Senate is also partly sleeping on the job. The issues Mheshimiwa is talking about the equalization fund, it should have been one of the priorities. The National Assembly and the Senate should have worked, made sure we have a board, should have worked to make sure the regulations are there, and they should have even pushed so that we have enough money in that equalization fund to be able to help those counties which were marginalized to be able to come up so that they are also able to contribute effectively to the revenues of this country.
All right. In the interest of fairness, now that you've raised that question and posted it, I'd just like to post it to Mheshimiwa. Has there been an effort to actually discuss matters to do with the equalization fund, or just to make sure that, processes are put in place to ensure that what was intended is actually being achieved from your end as members of parliament and even from the senator's side?
Thank you. In the last parliament, the National Assembly came up with a bill on equalization fund, but unfortunately, that bill in the act, they wanted equalization fund to be managed by the members from the National Assembly, and therefore the Senate did not agree, and it failed. Recently, Honorable Kamket came up with a bill on equalization fund to operationalize it, which we finished with the National Assembly. It is in the Senate, so we are waiting for the Senate to finish with it. Once they are through with it, then it can now, either if there are areas that are of disagreement, then you can have a mediation committee between the Senate and the National Assembly. If there are no areas of contention, then they should be able to finish with it and send it to the President for assent. That one, so there are efforts that have been done.
Okay.
But, and then National Assembly also has formed a Special Funds Accounts Committee. This Special Funds Accounts Committee, headed by Honorable Kaduri, is looking at how the equalization fund has been utilized. And therefore, except now that we have this issue of court feet, so you not have meetings coming in. But I think the committee will be able to look at how ways can be, we can be able to hold those who are accountable. The CS Treasury, the Ministry of Energy, the Ministry of Water, and the Ministry of Health. on how the equalization fund is being utilized and how it has been utilized before.
All right. Back to what we were discussing earlier, from what is coming out of this conversation is a clear acknowledgement that there is a lot that is happening in the counties which relates to corruption. It seems like corruption was also devolved when we introduced devolution. But then what conversation should we be having right now? Which school of thought do you borrow from Mheshimiwa? Should we be having a conversation about how to increase the money that counties are receiving currently, talking about losers and winners, or should we be talking about the system and how it operates? How is this 316 being implemented right now? Martin already gave his thought on that particular subject. I'd just like to hear your thought on this as well.
On issues about the losers and the winners, I think there should be a way on how we can be able to compensate those areas that are going to lose. And looking at it, that in the sessional paper number 10 of 1965, where resources were being given to areas that were more productive as compared to areas that were thought to be non-productive, which currently actually that is disapproved, because when you talk of an area like Northeastern or Turkana being denied resources because they thought it was non-productive, you can see that we've now discovered oil within those areas. Mm-hmm. And if we had initially developed a good infrastructure within those areas, then we might have even discovered that oil earlier than what we've done. And we might have even gone further to have it exploited and giving resources to the country. Unlike now, where we are struggling, because we are now struggling with, we have oil in Turkana, Lokichar, which we are transporting by road all the way to Mombasa for us to be able to export it. And that is very expensive. And again, even the road network itself to Turkana is a problem, because between Kainuk and West Pokot, you'll find that there is bridges. You find bridges are collapsing. Those lorries are not able to pass. You have issues of insecurity because that is areas that were left. And so you have all those challenges that are coming in. Mm-hmm. If we had a good infrastructure right in the beginning, then we would have easily exploited our oil. The resources would have been looked, and you see, even when you exploit oil in Turkana, it's not going to be used by the Turkanas alone. Mm. It's going to be, the formula states that 25%, 20% will be spent at the sub-county and 5% at the county level. And then 75 will go to the nation.
All right. Sorry to cut you short, Mheshimiwa. We all agree that every area is significant in different ways. There is something that comes out of every particular area. But then, what my question was: should we be talking about a revenue allocation, or should we be talking about looking at how the revenue that has been allocated already is being utilized in the counties? Because I feel even if we continue talking about adding more money to the counties without cleaning up the system, we are just going to be escalating the problem of corruption. Which school of thought do you borrow from, Mheshimiwa?
You know, that's a very difficult question. Because for one, corruption is not the population. Corruption is for those who are in leadership positions. And we have systems that have been put in place by the government. You have EACC, you have DCI, you have all the watchdogs and investigative agencies that should be dealing with corruption. But unfortunately, in more often, what appears in the public is what we call selective dealing with corruption. If corruption was looked at, regardless of who is involved in it, so that you don't have big fish and you don't have small fish, anybody who is engaged in corruption should be held accountable. If that was you see, you cannot say now that you are going to deny a certain county resources because of corruption. Mm-hmm. Take the leaders who are involved in corruption and prosecute them, and have even the recovery agency recover whatever they looted. Because what Martin is talking about, that people are buying choppers, people are buying properties in Karen and all that, that is happening. But should we allow that to continue? No. It shouldn't. Mm-hmm. It's immoral. So I think it's incumbent on the president and his government to make sure that corruption is actually dealt with not selectively, but judiciously. And then wananchi should not be made to suffer because of a certain corrupt system. So we cannot say that let's clean the system before we can give the resources. Give the resources and ensure that those resources reach to the rightful people and do for the rightful work.
All right. We'll talk about devolution later, but then I just want us to now get into another side of this particular conversation, the politics that this revenue allocation formula has attracted. Martin, we have seen divided opinion, especially amongst our leaders from different political parties and allies of who is who in the society, those who support the one man, one shilling formula and those who oppose it for one reason or the other. What do you read from the political twist that this conversation is suddenly taking?
You know, in Kenya, we politicize everything. You saw the majority whip in Senate, Senator Irungu Kangata daring the ODM leader that if they don't support the formula the way it is, then they will. It means the Kieleweke wing of Jubilee will not support the BBI. You see, that is blackmail. All
right. Martin, sorry for that. I'll come back to you briefly, but I just want us to update our viewers on something that is happening right now. The Health Principal Secretary, Susan Mochachi, is currently speaking. She is receiving commodities worth 110 million shillings that have been donated by the government of China. Currently, we are just going to be taking you live to the KEMSA Embakasi warehouse where this is happening. Let's listen into what she's saying.
For any goods and commodities that are received under the Ministry of Health and to KEMSA are prepared beforehand so that when these goods reach here, they immediately are disbursed to where they are needed most, and that is the health facilities in all the different parts of the world. So we stand in solidarity and in full support of our healthcare workers because they are our principal users of these PPEs, of these goggles, of these shields, and so really we are just demonstrating that there is no county that is left behind. If you look at the list I have, it has 47 counties, all receiving some PPE, all receiving some masks, all receiving some gloves, all receiving shoe covers, all receiving protective goggles. And this is the spirit with which the ministry has dealt with every donation that has been given to it by the different partners who have stood together with us. So I want to thank you very much and to assure you that the health workers are going to have these goods and they will be using them as they deal with the cases of corona amongst our people. So thank you very much.
And of course, Madam PS, also just to add to that, because this is a question of accountability, as I raised it, that even at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we are keeping an inventory of every single donation that is coming in. Is catalogued, and this is then definitely going to be synced with yourselves in terms of the records, and at every stage we also liaise with the source, with the countries, just to confirm what exactly has been received, what has been disbursed through your networks, and so there is a system of accountability. And this is in line with, as I mentioned earlier, with the instructions of His Excellency the President, that there has to be utmost accountability in the manner in which we apply these resources. Absolutely. And it's not just the resources we are receiving as donations, it is also resources from government. Because besides these donations, government is also applying colossal amounts of resources in this battle. So please be assured. Yes, I think we can now go ahead.
Just you just pick it up. That's good.
And see, there is a team led by the Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Health, Madam Susan Mochache. Today they are receiving personal protective equipment that have been donated by the Chinese government, going to go a long way in helping the health workers who are the frontline soldiers in the fight against COVID-19. It is a consignment that is costing about 110 million shillings, currently happening at the KEMSA Embakasi warehouse. House. We'll be giving you more details about this particular event later. We are also tracking quite a number of events for you in Kenya's capital and other parts of the country as well. For more on what our reporters are out and about following up for you, here is the Reporter's Diary. All right, so those are some of the activities that we should be bringing your way as soon as we get them underway. Remember, we are doing this live as they happen for you. But then among all the issues that we are following up for you today is the row concerning the division of revenue. Senators today are set to vote on this new formula that has been proposed by the Commission on Revenue Allocation. So on our viewpoint question, we are asking you, should the Senate adopt the formula as proposed by CRA? Should the Senate adopt the formula as proposed by the CRA? Remember, it's using one of its foundations as the population to determine how much money should go to the counties, among other issues. But the bone of contention has been the use of population, because some counties, almost half, at least 19 counties, seem to be losing in this particular new formula, while others are winners in this particular arrangement. So should the Senate adopt the formula as proposed by CRA? That's what we're asking you on our viewpoint question. You can share your views with us on social media at Serfine_Achieng on Twitter, Serfine Achieng on Facebook, and of course on our mother official Twitter handle at KBC Channel 1 on Facebook, as well at KBC Channel 1. Remember, we're also streaming this live for you on Facebook and on YouTube. If you cannot be able to stay in front of your TV set for long, carry us along with you, and we ensure that we keep you updated and we open your eyes on some of the issues that are shaping the news in the country. So in studio, in case you're just joining us, we are talking about that particular row, the revenue allocation formula that has been a conversation for quite some time, and I've been hosting a panel of two gentlemen who have been sharing their insights with me. Honorable Dr. Robert Pokose, the Member of Parliament and the Best constituency, and Martin Andati, political analyst. Now, we want to continue with our conversation, and before we went to that particular link, Martin, we were just getting your insights on what you read from the political twist that this conversation, this debate about the revenue allocation formula is suddenly taking. A lot is coming in, threats that the BBI could not see light of day. There's just a lot that we are served, politically speaking, each and every day. What do you think about how this conversation is panning out?
I think I was saying Irun Kangata was trying to blackmail the ODM leader, Honorable Raila Odinga, because he said if Raila does not whip the ODM senators to support the formula, then it means the BBI will collapse. But the BBI was just Raila's idea, but the handshake is between Raila and Uhuru. So I don't understand why they will be trying to blackmail Raila, because whatever proposals Raila has got, they are not meant to help him as an individual. They are supposed to improve the governance structure. The only question is, when you look at what Mheshimiwa has talked about, the equalization fund and the 2010 constitution, is it really time for us to look at, to review the constitution? Because what it tells you is we have not fully implemented the 2010 constitution. There are so many issues, the rules, the regulations, even in the land laws. There are quite a number of regulations which were supposed to be passed. There are proposals, the minimum and maximum acreage, issues we were supposed to have debated and come up with. None of those things has been actualized. So we have not fully implemented the constitution. Then before we fully implement the 2010 constitution, because for the constitution to be fully operational, there are certain laws and rules and regulations which we were supposed to debate and enact. Before we did that, we are now rushing and talking about amending the constitution. So, in my opinion, I think our priorities as a country are misplaced. We need to go back and implement the constitution, give life to the constitution. Where there are challenges, we see what we can do. Then after that, we can be able to do a national constitutional audit conference. And that will inform whether we really need to come up with some of those things that we are coming up with. But you know, because of the politics of expediency, Raila and the fellas around him thought that the easier route to get to power would be now you run around, come up with something called handshake, then come up with the BBI,
All right.
and use it as because the thinking was they would have a referendum, which you know, they were trying to reenact 2005, come up with a referendum, use it, whip the other side, then now build momentum for 2022.
All right.
Unfortunately or fortunately, COVID came, and the way things are going, I don't see us having a referendum.
All right,
so
Martin,
that script has collapsed.
Well said, Martin, but allow me not to just allow this conversation. We are not talking about BBI, though, but we couldn't avoid that particular subject. The reason I brought in that particular issue is like what you've said, what Senator Irungu Kang'ata said over the weekend. But then again, I'd like also to hear your thoughts on this particular subject, Mheshimiwa, talking about the political twist that this is actually taking. Is it likely to hurt some of the fruits we ought to get from this particular process, talking about revenue allocation to the counties? Then you bring in the issue of politics. It may influence decisions that are going to be made at the end of the day. Are we likely to win or lose as Wanjiku if we allow politics to take center stage?
You know, the way our country is that you cannot ignore Raila Odinga. You cannot ignore the opinion of other leaders, the president and his team with his deputy. So when Irungu Kang'ata raises the issue that asking Honorable Raila Odinga to whip his troops, because what has happened when you look at the recent past, you saw impeachment of Honorable Waititu, Governor Waititu, which troops were whipped from both sides. You saw attempt impeachment of Anne Waiguru, which troops were whipped from all sides to reject it. Okay? So in the Senate, you have troops who are, if you combine the troops who are loyal to Raila Odinga and the troops who are loyal to the president, then this thing is going to pass. So
at the end of the day, we cannot avoid a political decision.
You cannot avoid a political decision.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing from where you sit?
From where I sit, it's a bad thing, because our constitution envisages independence of the legislature, independence of the judiciary, and independence of the executive. And therefore, the legislature should be able to think in terms of who have sent them to come and represent. You are supposed to look at the interests of your people, not the interests of your leaders. Therefore, if you look at the interests of your people, then you should not be whipped by an outside force. You should be able to respect the people who elected you to go to parliament and be able to do what they want. And once we have that independence of the legislature, independence of the judiciary, and independence of the executive, then everybody will take its responsibility and do what they are supposed to do.
Martin, allow me get something clear from your end. What would be a win for Wanjiku when we talk about this particular formula? We understand the conversation going around it. At the end of the day, what ought to be a win for Wanjiku? Let's leave politics aside.
What needs to be done is we work out the formula they were telling you from the start. Get a balance, because too much weight has been put on population. We are ignoring the landmass. So we get the two factors, and then we are able to add that 18% plus 8%. It gives you 26. So you divide by 2. So you have 13%. So you give 13% on population, and you have 13% on the landmass. When you do the mathematics, you realize that the counties which who are supposed to lose some money will end up losing very little. And those which will gain will also gain marginally. And the others where they had been gerrymandering with the numbers like Mandera, because the numbers, there's no way the population would have decreased the way it did. It tells you that the numbers had been massaged. Then you are actually basically correcting an anomaly. But at the same time, the others who have also massaged their numbers in the 2019 numbers, they don't benefit so much at the expense of the others. And I've given you examples of Ruiru, which is in Kiambu, and I've also given you the example of Vihiga, where when you know the birth rate in some of those places, and Dr. here will tell you, our fellows from the west where he comes from are very productive. So the mortality rate in Kiambu could be low, but the birth rate is also very low. So there's no way those numbers will be growing the way they have grown in some of those places. It's not possible. So we need to strike a compromise where we have a win-win situation. And that is what I'm telling you, that's what we need to do. Two, as a matter of urgency, those senators must address the real issues, which is now making sure that they have that equalization fund being fully operationalized with all the necessary structures, with all the regulations, with a fully functional board, so that they don't keep on complaining every other day. Three, the issue of giving 1% for financial prudence, it doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. So we need to amend that, maybe increase it, because you are talking about health, you are talking about agriculture, but what about those places where there is no agriculture, where they are doing livestock? So why don't we reduce some of the points, the weight we have allocated on some of those factors? Because if you are saying that this particular place has so many hospital beds, so we are giving them more money. And the others who don't have hospital beds because they were denied an opportunity, so you don't give them money, so they continue staying without hospitals and without beds. It doesn't make sense. So we need now to reduce some of the weight we have allocated to some of those factors, so that we are able to give it even financial prudence. That will encourage the counties to be accountable. It will encourage the counties to raise more on revenue resources. Mm-hmm. And as Mheshimiwa said, the issues, the institutions which fight for accountability, the civil society, the media, must also be very vigilant. Then we must fight corruption, because when we get governors and fellows in the counties looting the way they have been looting, and there's nothing much happening, then it encourages them. But when the moment you take some of them to court, then you are able to get people scared. But you see now, a very interesting ruling happened the other day in the Constitutional Court in Machakos, Justice Odunga, where he has said you can't take anybody to court without the consent of the DPP.
All right.
So basically, what it means is all these fellas will engage in all these nefarious activities, knowing that the office of the ODPP, it does not have all the capacity to take all these fellas to court. And you can imagine the kind of theft that has occurred countrywide. Because all these things, most of them are documented through the media. They have been documented through the public accounts committees, through the Senate audit committees. You see it every time you've seen senators appearing, the governors appearing before Senate. The kind of theft you hear about, it is mind-boggling. So how is the DCI going to carry out investigations? Then the files all end up piling at the ODPP, because it takes maybe 1 or 2 years for the file to be processed. Maybe it goes there, it's taken back to the DCI to investigate for another 2 years. By the time you finish the investigation or give the go-ahead to charge, the governor would have left office, or he would have even died. Some of the witnesses would have died. They would have stolen the traces. They would have killed some of the witnesses. So much would have happened in between.
A lot of things
would have happened within that particular period.
All right, well said, Martin, and thank you for those insights you've given us, just for Wanjiku to understand how they ought to measure a win for them, even as the conversation on revenue allocation to the counties continues. Today, senators are set to be voting on the new revenue allocation formula. It's a matter of wait and see. And here in studio, we're having a conversation about that, just to help you understand a deeper perspective of this particular subject. Allow us now to take a very short break. We are coming back with much more, talking about even the politics that this whole debate has attracted. Stay with us for that.
Gaki, wawezaje kunitwangia simu saa hii Gaki? Saa zile tu nimewekelea matoke yangu kwa meza. Niko tayari kukula, wewe ukikula kwako mimi ukusumbua. Gaki, hii simu sisiki yake ya nani? Mimi ukusumbua ukikula kwako. Basi wewe ngoja nimalize matoke yangu tena utanitwangia.
Kupata matoke, bonyeza *811 *965#. Bonyeza *811 *965#.
When the world changed, it made us go back to the simple joys and love the little things even more, like serving up your best, eating together, and sharing more. Now, we'll take nothing for granted and always remember to taste the simple joys. Coca-Cola. Taste the simple joys.
On the next episode of Corner.
Is Mommy sick?
She's very angry.
Angry?
She shouted at me.
I have to go.
But we're in the middle of training.
It's my kid, I need to go.
It's my husband. Knockout Otieno himself. The champion, in my house.
What is going on with you?
Isn't it obvious? My husband left me.
I'm not the one who had an affair.
The date for the FA Cup final is set, and so are we, as Arsenal and Chelsea face off again on the 1st of August at Wembley. The All-London affair will be broadcast live and exclusive on KBC Channel 1 this Saturday from 7:30 p.m.
Cesar Azpilicueta again for Giroud. Oh, and it's found a way through.
Heads up. It is a showdown worth your wait.
All right, welcome back, and thank you so much for staying with us. Allow me to just quickly sample some of the views that are coming forth on our social media concerning what you're talking about this morning. The program you're watching is Newscheck. Today we are talking about the revenue allocation formula, and we asked you whether you support, should Senate adopt the new revenue allocation formula proposed by CRA? Should the Senate adopt the new revenue allocation formula proposed by the CRA? That is the question we asked you. So we just want to get your voice on this particular subject. Brian Makamu Mutali, you say, if they do away with the equalization fund, then devolution will have lost its meaning to the counties that have been marginalized since independence. Linda Omaro, thank you for watching. And of course, One Caesar, of course, following. I will be sampling more of those views later on in the course of this particular conversation. But then allow me now bring in another guest into this conversation, Dr. Churchill Saoke, a governance expert. He's joining us via Zoom. A very good morning, Churchill. We are talking about the stalemate over the division of revenue across the counties, a conversation that has gone on for quite a while. Kindly just, share your thoughts with regards to how this conversation has taken shape since it began. Do you feel that there could be more in the senators not passing it for the 5th time? Today they're supposed to be voting on this particular formula. What is it that could be the bone of contention from where you sit, Churchill?
Thank you very much, Serfine. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for having me. It is really great to... This is a very important discussion. We've had a lot of this discussion before, and it is not likely to end because it is the center of politics. Revenue allocation, resource allocation is a very emotive. It is extremely emotive, and it is a discussion that will always continue after every 5 years whenever discussions around the schedules and the basis for revenue allocations will always be undertaken. So I think this is not new. It has been there before. I think the only problem that it's coming pretty at a time that is the counties are got in between. They need to pass this law as fast as possible to enable the operations of the counties to go. And it is also coming at a time when the country is, there's also a lot of politics that is being undertaken around the county. So I think that this is a discussion that is still likely to continue. My worry is that it needs to be fastened. I mean, we are in basic should counties have for revenue sharing. And I think previously the CRA has put emphasis on even the population. Even before there was high percentage on the second schedule also had a high percentage on population as well. And I think that what we had in the second schedule, what we had criticized CRA for was there was no sort of a clear understanding of the percentages vis-a-vis the functions. And I think that this is something that they have tried to do this time around, which we also need to appreciate.
Churchill, there has been a conversation about reaching a compromise, and even my guest in studio this morning raised that concern because we have counties that are going to be losers and counties that are going to be winners if we follow this direction. From your own perspective, what do you think would help us reach that particular compromise? What would work and what would not work for us to help even those counties that you say are coming from marginalized areas, so that everybody at the end of the day is brought on board and they feel like they've gotten a fair piece of that particular national cake? Churchill.
You know, this is a very tricky situation because you see, when you look at national development, you are looking at the contribution of people into the national cake. You're looking at it is people who bring resources into the nation. It is people who work every day to ensure that the country gets resources. And as a result, the more people you have, the more likely that these people are likely contributing to national development. Now, that is one dilemma on one side. The other dilemma on the other side is that the other people who might be living in areas where they may be underprivileged. And as a result, you need to find mechanisms of building their effort to make them less privileged. So this is the other side of the dilemma. So it therefore means that we need to find a balanced mechanism of not necessarily ensuring that everybody gets an equal share. The idea about equitability, and we are looking at equitable, equity, not equality. Equity, we look at mechanisms of ensuring that the counties that are sparsely developed are able to be built in terms of their economic effort so that they could also effectively contribute into the economic development. And over the years in my discussion on this issue, I have always emphasized the need to ensure that we also ensure that we put huge resources into the counties that are less developed to develop their fiscal effort. Because it is only in developing the fiscal effort of these counties that we will be making them equitable in terms of making them, leveraging themselves to be in a position where they can contribute effectively into national development like the more populated areas.
Right. Churchill, also talking about the political side of this conversation, because we tend to have this habit of bringing politics in every issue in this particular country. We have never been able to evade this particular subject. Three gentlemen, three leaders are being focused on when we are having this conversation. That is President Uhuru Kenyatta, who has not come out outrightly on this particular matter and say which side he is on. But Deputy President William Ruto, through Twitter again, actually advocated for what he says should be a win-win formula that is sensitive to the proposals made without hurting everyone. He went ahead to say inawezekana. And of course, ODM leader Raila Odinga, initially it wasn't very clear whether he was strongly opposing this particular formula, but yesterday, as per his statement, he's actually in support of this particular formula, but then asking the senators to pass it and focus on those amendments later, the amendments that they brought forth on the report that was presented by the Commission on Revenue Allocation. If you look at these three gentlemen, what political cards are they playing and what options do they have and what could have inspired their standing point? Raila's turnaround, Uhuru Kenyatta's middle ground, and William Ruto's middle ground.
You know, in terms of Serfine, this is as I began by saying, distribution of resources is at the core of politics. And we could not be able to escape politics out of this. Well, the idea about the president, of course, he will have to take a middle ground because he's trying to balance up the political scenarios. But then that aside, we need to look at, before even I talk about the question of politics, we need to see, you know, by the time this whole issue of this proposal was coming to Parliament, there are a series of processes that have gone through the Commission of Revenue Allocation, and they have gone through a lot of discussions with different stakeholders to look at the comparison with the previous basis to ensure that whatever they're coming up with is somehow something that is likely to be workable. And this was the main idea that why the Constitution established this commission, because they knew that resource distribution will always be emotive. It will always draw political interests. And so to reduce those political interests, the need for coming up with this independent institution that deliberately and independently and objectively looks at this issue much more objectively with a view of coming with a fair play was very necessary. And so it would have been much more easier for the members of parliament to put aside too much politics, which has even gone too emotive, and look at these issues that CRA has brought in a much more objective way, and try to bring a human face into them with a view of objectively criticizing rather than bringing politics or blackmail, like, you know, now introducing issues of BBI into it. The moment you bring that kind of politics, you miss the point. And in the long run, you are then going to have some of these political party leaders, the deputy president, the president, the former prime minister, they will have to de-whip their members to make certain decisions that are politically correct and are not necessarily in the betterment of the people in the future. And I can assure you, Serfine, most likely if we take that kind of direction, this thing is likely to recur when the fourth basis will come.
Mm-hmm. All right, making a politically correct decision there. Churchill, before I let you go, one final question. If this new formula is applied as is, do you think it will reverse the gains made with devolution, or it's going to propel and add value to the fruits we've gained since the inception of devolution?
Come again?
Churchill, if you can hear me, just a final
Yes.
question. All right.
Yes.
I just want to get your perspective on whether you feel the new formula is going to support or thwart efforts gained as a result of devolution.
For me, I think that every effort that is being made towards the constitution is a positive effort. The only problem that I find in the discussion and in the debate in this issue is how much is being politicized. I would have really wished we have much more deliberations as to how we change this formula. How, for example, the addition of the emphasis on the population, how it is going to have effect with regards to the functions, the devolved functions, how it is going to have effect with regards to building the efforts of the counties to generate their own resources, how it is going to have impact into the counties with regards to making these counties reduce their financial prudence and their capability to take stewardship of the counties better. And I think that there are much more progressive discussions. Those are much more progressive discussions that I think we are going to lose moving forward. I remember when we were having this discussion with the former, the chair of council at that time, when there was an impasse among the senators and the National Assembly.
Right.
And we were saying, why haven't we talked about how to build the capacities of the counties for more taxation, to have more taxes? We could build up this through this CRA, create that basis of thinking, to create a thinking of, we need to build the capacities of the counties.
All right.
To create their own resource for the future, because that is the only way that sustainably we will make the northeastern counties be much more reliant. We will make the coastal counties be more reliant. We will make the eastern counties be more reliant, because there is just how much we can get from the national government.
Thank you, Churchill. Thank you so much for creating time for us this particular morning. Dr. Churchill Saoke, a governance expert, joining us via Zoom to talk about the division of revenue stalemate. Currently, today, the senators are supposed to be voting on this particular subject. We really appreciate your time, Churchill.
Thank you.
In studio, I've been
Thank you.
talking to two gentlemen, Honorable Dr. Robert Pokose, MP Endebess constituency, and Martin Andati, a political analyst. I just want to continue with you, gentlemen, just going forward to talk about this particular subject. And I introduced the subject of politics, and even that is what Churchill was talking about earlier. Allow me to just take you through a statement that was issued by ODM leader Raila Odinga yesterday, just the key highlights of some of the issues he was raising in his statement. And aside from talking about how this has divided the nation at this particular point, of course, Raila Odinga mentioned issues to do with the Senate making certain amendments to the CRA recommendation, but equally retain the central principle that allocation must be about the population. This was initially in the CRA report, but unfortunately the Senate, he says the institution, in this case the Senate, has disagreed on its own amendments. There are quite a number of changes that the Senate had proposed, but this is what Raila Odinga is saying. If they cannot agree on these particular changes, he's saying this, I quote, having had a robust debate on this matter, the Senate should now allow the country to move forward by adopting the CRA report while using the concerns voiced for the future recommendations on revenue sharing. He's actually saying that these recommendations may be useful, but they could be applied in future because, according to Raila Odinga, the CRA recommendation was built on lessons from comprehensive review of the second basis and comparative analysis of financing transfer, and of course extensive consultations with the national government, the county government, and he goes ahead to say that in order to avoid a similar standoff next time, the concerns currently arising should be forwarded to the CRA for consideration in its future recommendation. That yes, as we are right now, let's just move on, and then these recommendations can be applied in future. You can forward them to the Commission on Revenue Allocation, and then they can, you know, consider them in future. What do you think, Mheshimiwa?
Thank you. You know, Raila Odinga changes with time. He responds to, is this politician who responds to what is at stake. When you look at the 2010 Constitution, at that time he said, let's pass it the way it is. We will amend it. We'll make the amendments in future. Recently, he's come up with the PPI-ish thing to do those amendments. When you tell the Senate to pass the way it is, and there are concerns that have been raised, then you are just telling them, let's move on. Those concerns you've raised, we'll look at them in future. It's a very dangerous precedent. Because what you are doing is that you are not even addressing the issues they are raising. What it means is that for this, even the Northeastern people who are saying, whom we thought the Constitution would address through Equalization Fund, to address the inequalities that they are experiencing, the marginalization, the lack of hospitals, the lack of water supply, the lack of health facilities, the lack of electricity, which has not been done. You are telling them, let's move on. We use this formula the way it is, where those concerns you've raised, you will give it to the CRA. CRA will look at it in its future recommendation. Yeah? Suppose the CRA ignores it in its future recommendations. And you know, the future is built now. The future is built now. You build the future for tomorrow. So I think it is important that we address the issues that are facing these people when we are making the amendments. If there are amendments that will be able to address those inequalities, the Senate should be able to do them now, so that we don't have a kind of disparities between people in Kitui, people in Mwingi, Kitui, Makueni, Kilifi, Coast, you know, and these are people who actually supported Raila Odinga in the last elections. And in the last elections, he was telling them how marginalized they are, so that they look at him in terms of hope, so that they are coming to vote for him, hoping that they'll be able to rape now.
All right.
So what it means is that he has thrown them under the bus.
All right. I'll be getting to that part of the conversation because that is what I was going to next. But I just needed to understand your thoughts on his proposal that, yes, you know, we can actually just move on for now. And all those proposals that are being, amendments that have been issued, you know, can be forwarded to the CRA for future consideration. Martin, what do you think about this particular advice, bearing in mind the fact that senators have not agreed on some of the recommendations they themselves came up with, because CRA presented a report, but the senators, including one Nandi Senator Samson Cherargei, had quite a number of amendments that they wanted on this particular report. If they cannot agree on their own recommendations, so what should we do as a country?
You know, what Raila has done is laughable, because the way Mheshimiwa said, he is playing politics of expedience. In 2013, 2017, and 2007, it was very convenient to tell those people that they have been marginalized. Now that he has a feeling that he needs support from the mountain, he wants to please that bloc. So the real issue here is, and I said it from the start, that the leaders from those marginal areas slept on the job. When the proposals, because this issue was there, and we really discussed it robustly, they needed to engage more, and they needed to get people who will sit and be able to look at the numbers and advise them to lobby the CRA, which they didn't do. But you know, now that is already water under the bridge. So what do? They need to sit, and they can defer. They can actually give a proposal in Senate that although the other formula has expired because it's supposed to be for 5 years, the Senate has the powers to defer this formula coming into place. Then they give a proposal that currently let us give resources based on the old formula just for this year. Then they sit and give an input on their proposal. And they get people who will be able to help them understand numbers. You know, not many people understand their numbers. You remember when there was the proposal to tax petrol at VAT 16%. And you know, the president was set. We came out, and Kenya has made a lot of noise. We gave a proposal, and we said this will not, you would actually hurt the economy more by putting VAT on petrol. But you see, the government also needed revenues because they were having a very serious shortfall. When we gave a proposal that let the VAT be put at 8%, if they have to do it, the government immediately picked it up, and the president agreed to tax VAT, to put VAT on petrol at that rate. So it's a question of compromise, and that's what needs to be done. You know, Senator Cherargei is very excited because his Nandi County, which he represents, is going to walk away with 1.9 billion more. But you know, those of us who have moved around this country, we look at the country from a bigger picture. It's not just the excitement that my Kakamega will get close to $1 billion. My brother Otichiro is also losing. You see, he's losing almost 300 and something billion, 314 million. So you need to strike a compromise. When you take money now from Kakamega and give it to Vihiga, from Vihiga and give it to Kakamega, are you really building the country? When you are taking money and giving to Bungoma, and you are taking it from Kisumu, you are taking it from Siaya, because those are some of the counties which are losing. Are you really helping? You are taking money from Tharaka-Nithi and giving it to another county. So you think that is populist. But you know, you must also understand, and I've told you, places like Mandera, they massaged the numbers because you could see the numbers were not adding up. So on that basis, they were getting more money because they had numbers which were massaged and they had a huge landmass. But now, strike a compromise. Even if we don't put the weight of 18 on population, maybe let's reduce it to something like 12. Then we increase the weight on landmass so that there is some kind of compromise. We reduce some of the weight we have put on health by maybe 2 or 3 points and put it on fiscal prudence, you know, so that it is you are able to strike a compromise where those fellas, the counties which feel they have been marginalized all through, don't feel like they have lost so much, and the other ones who have higher populations, they also don't feel like they have been denied an opportunity to get an extra coin. And the most critical thing now, the way we were discussing, is accountability. When you have taken the money to the counties, is the money reaching the intended beneficiaries? So we need to strengthen our institutions of governance, which hold the governors to account, which hold the money, when the money goes there, it's able to be used. You've seen the issue of the Auditor General. It has taken almost 1 year to have the Auditor General in office. So you can imagine the backlog that has been created. We already had a backlog of the reports by almost 4 or 5 years. Now, another delay of 1 year is going to create a further backlog. So by the time now you are even releasing the money, it's based on a very old report, you know. And you see, after the auditor has finished, and you know, there have been questions about the funding of the Office of the Auditor General. The capacity is not there. They don't have adequate capacity. When you finish, you have to take those reports to Parliament. Next year, people will start politicking. So do we have, will MPs be sitting in Parliament to look at those numbers the way they are supposed to, or they will be fighting for for re-election. So
For
the focus is gone. Then you will not be able to pass the reports. So you will continue relying on reports of which are 6-7 years and denying counties enough money. So those are some of the issues that we seriously and robustly need to discuss as a country.
All right. Now that you're talking about the politics of it, allow me just get this out of the way. It's one of our viewers on social media here. Caesar, you are asking, no, not actually asking, Caesar says, the passing of the new formula puts the handshake deal in the balance, so everyone has to play smart. Good morning, Serfine. Martin, what do you think about this particular comment?
You know, the Runkangata was blackmailing Raila, and Raila fell for it. You know, the issue of the handshake collapsing or not collapsing is neither here nor there. Most of the governors, the senators who are allied to the DP, they are supporting that formula because the counties, apart from Tharaka Nithi, which is represented by Senator Kathure Kindiki, professor, all the other 8 or 9 senators who are allied to the DP, the counties which they represent are benefiting. So they are all supporting it. So even without, even if Raila were to get, to whip his senators against it, it would not have worked. So what they just need to do is to strike a compromise, sit down and look at the country, because the country, this country belongs to all of us, and the country is bigger than all of us. So that you create issues of equity. And the Constitution is very clear about issues of equity. We are not talking about equality because there will be issues. But the other fellas also must be part of this country, and they need to, their issues must be addressed. And how do you address? By giving them some resources to allow them to be able to put up infrastructure which will also allow them to effectively contribute to this country.
All right. Suddenly there is talk about Raila Odinga having thrown a section of his supporters under the bus. I'm talking about even the coastal region. We'll be talking about that later, because this is one of the regions that has counties that are listed among the losing counties. We'll be looking at how this is going to be affecting his political course going forward. But I want us now to follow an event that is currently happening. This is actually the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions that is launching the decision to charge and the guidelines and the case management system. Among some of the key speakers in this particular function include the Interior Cabinet Secretary, Dr. Fred Matiang'i, and the Inspector General of Police, Hilary Mutyambai. Let's just go there and follow in on what is happening. This is currently speaking is the EACC CEO, Twalib Mbarak. Let's listen into what he's saying.
Of human interaction, generally it reduces the corruption. We are talking of reporting of crime by creating complaint channels that can lead to concrete action. We are talking of deterrence through dissemination of information where the public and the law enforcers become partners, but not enemies. So it is in this note that I'm confident that the ODPP case management system will enhance transparency by making prosecutorial process auditable and limiting of discretion of decision maker, any delay from receipt of inquiry file, making decision, preferring charges, and making the public online in terms of awareness of what is going on in the DPP office, if it is EACC, if it is judiciary. So EACC is also in the process of modernizing and automating its system, and we are working with the DPP to make sure that this system integrates with our system. And I'm pleased to report that our perspective of technical officers, they are already in partnership with the DPP personnel for the inception meeting that has taken place, and we are working towards integrating the two systems, which will make more cohesion and efficiency in the service for the people of this country. I believe that integrated case management system, DPP, will be a game changer for investigation, prosecution, adjudication of corruption cases, and also for the public to be at par with what we do. Because some of the things that the public condemn, especially our institutions, when they're talking of judiciary, they're talking of DPP, they're talking of the police, quite a number of these criticisms are based on ignorance. And you cannot blame the public. It is because we are not working with the public. And it is through automation that we'll be able to bring the public into this kind of participation. So in conclusion, I wish to reiterate that EACC is committed to working closely with key stakeholders under the Council of Administrative of Justice and other agencies and forums. And I would like to also assure the CJ that we are with you and we will work with you. Where we find issues, we'll address them appropriately through your office. And where you think we need guidance, we are ready for any criticism and any sort of advice that can enhance the war against corruption. We remain focused on implementing our strategies on prevention of corruption, focusing on asset tracing, asset recovery, investigation on high-impact cases. We agree with the DPP that we should not believe in numbers, we should believe in quality cases. That is high-impact cases that will achieve a conviction. Lastly, we wish to thank the Director of Public Prosecution for the invitation of the launching of this program, because we feel that we are part of you. And rest assured, as a commission, we are supporting you, and we'll be working with you. Thank you very much, and God bless you all.
Thank you very much.
All right, that is the EACC CEO Twalib Mbarak talking about the stepping up of efforts to fight corruption in the country on a day that the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions launched the decision to charge guidelines and the case management system currently happening at in Loresho grounds at the Prosecution Training Institute. And of course, among the key speakers at this particular function include even the Chief Justice David Maraga. We will be giving you details about this particular event later, and how important is this case management system going to be in efforts to fight corruption in the country. Now we want to continue having the conversation we've been having in studio. We're talking about the revenue allocation formula, and gentlemen, before we went to that particular function, we were talking about the conversation that has been gaining momentum since Raila Odinga gave his statement that he could have just betrayed some of his close allies and close supporters. Talking about a good example is the coastal region. Recently, we saw coastal leaders under the umbrella Jumuiya ya Counties Pwani Economic Bloc saying that they are opposing this new formula, and they were even vowing to move to court in case it is passed as is. One of the people that have really supported Raila's political cause is none other than Mombasa Governor Ali Hassan Joho, whose county is actually among the counties that are set to lose in this particular arrangement. Martin, what do you think this actually presents for Raila's political future, considering the conversation around 2022 and how some of his close allies are now going to be losing, and he's supporting this particular formula? What is actually he going to be dealing with going forward, Martin?
He has lost it, because once you support the formula the way it is, then you say they are made after. You know, we did that with the Constitution and it has not worked. So why not resolve the issues now, then come up with a solution, rather than saying you pass it, then you will amend. When do you amend? And you know, once you pass the formula, it is effective for 5 years. It runs for a 5-year cycle. So politically, Raila could have been set up, because he's out to please the Mount Kenya bloc. But you know, the Mount Kenya bloc, you look at the historical patterns, and there has been a lot of resistance to Raila getting support. Part of the problems the president has run into is the perception that he wants Raila to be the candidate of that bloc. So, and you know, he has demonized him for so long. So the people are asking what has changed, and he has not gone to the people to explain to them why suddenly the guy who was Mugoroki has become a brother. So there are issues, and the mere fact that he's supporting, because the county is gaining more, are Mount Kenya and even the western ones.
Which is a vote-rich region that cannot be ignored.
It is vote-rich, but
you know... What options did he have? What probably could he have placed on the table?
That's why I've told you should have looked for a compromise, because you see, you must look for a way of retaining what you already have. You don't abandon what you have for what you are not sure about. Because what he's basically doing is what Mheshimiwa said. He's thrown those counties which have been supporting him under the bus for what he's not sure. Because what guarantee does he have that once you abandon these ones, the other ones are automatically going to support you? So Joho has been a very strong supporter of Raila, and Mombasa is one of the counties which is losing. Kilifi. In Kilifi, all the MCS are ODM. So, and Kilifi is losing a substantial amount of money. So plus even Narok. You know, Narok has, Raila won the presidential election. He beat Uhuru, although Jubilee has more MPs. So all those strongholds, even Turkana, where Nanoki is, they really supported Raila. So they could be trying to tilt, they were trying to tilt towards DP for political survival. But you can see when they realize the DP is an insider, is an outsider who was posing like he's an insider, they have started retreating. So he is going to lose big time, because you cannot tell these people that you have been marginalized. You tell them that you have lost out. Now, the little money that we are getting to start also look like we are part of Kenya, you want to take it and reduce it. So it's going to cost him very heavily. DP is playing smart politics. But you see, he is playing with generalities. Because when he says a win-win, you ask him what is win-win, because he's not giving details. All he's done is to please Kithure, who is his key supporter, and also please the other ones. Because he should have told the likes of Cherargei that, look, you guys need to try and accede to some of these proposals from the other side, without necessarily losing all the gains you have gotten, but without also making the other side feel that they have lost so much. So you strike a compromise. And you know, life is about compromises, because you cannot just be hardliner all through. And you will not always have your way in life, you know. So you lose here, you gain the other side. And that is what needs to be looked at. One proposal is one I've told you, giving a proposal where you delay the implementation, so that this discussion is given further time, more time to be able to look at the numbers in a more concrete way. And those counties which are losing, they don't sleep on the job, because the problem is the moment you give them time, they will forget about it. And then sit, go and sleep. Again, when the issue now comes back in Senate, then they wake up. Because you need to get people who understand governance, people who understand numbers, people who understand statistics, so that they are able to go through the documents one by one, look at all those figures, analyze them, and come up with a serious concept paper, and explain to the group why certain issues have not been done the way they should have been done, and why the weight should be put on certain parameters, which would help them. And that has not happened, because there is nothing scientific, apart from some little document I've seen done by Bilokero. There is nothing else those guys are telling you. They just tell you, we want to have the money the way it has always been. But when you ask them, come up with a proposal, there is no proposal. Because when you are in negotiation, you must always have a counter offer. If this guy, when you go to the market to buy a bull, they tell you, my bull is 20,000. You tell them, no, me, I'm giving you 15. So you will be able to haggle until you reach a compromise of maybe 18. But you see, these ones are saying, we don't want this. So what do you want? Let us have the old formula. But the old formula was flawed. So if the old formula was flawed, we must be able to improve on it. So how do we improve on it? Let us have this kind of formula and give the proposal, give the figures, and explain by putting this weight on this figure, which is justifiable in this way, you will be able to gain this much, you will be able to lose this much. By putting this weight on this particular one, you will gain here, you lose here. So ultimately, you will get this kind of money, and this side will lose this kind of money. Then they will be able to see sense and buy into it. But you don't just speak and say tunapoteza without a counter offer.
Inawezekana, that is what the DP says, that a win-win formula is something that we need. And Martin is saying this morning, don't just sit there and say tunapoteza, explain yourself and say, give details as to what you think should work in your situation. Quickly, I just want to also get your perspective on this, Mheshimiwa. If you are either William Ruto or the ODM leader Raila Odinga, what would you have done? The DP has taken a middle ground. Raila Odinga has decided to outrightly call out the senators to pass this particular formula. Is it a smart move from where you sit, and what would you have done differently if you were in their position, considering the political terrain that they're trading on?
You know, when you listen to the people from Central, the politicians from Central, they are saying 1 shilling, 1 man, or 1 man, 1 shilling. The politicians from Northeastern and the coastal region, they are saying 1 kilometer, 1 shilling. Those are hardline positions. It should not go that way. Raila Odinga has said, let's pass it. Then once we pass, we'll be able to make amends in future through sending those proposals to CRA. That is, you've thrown, what I said, throwing your supporters under the bus. Because what it means, how will you go to explain to the people of course that I decided to take away the money from you? Then maybe in future we'll be able, because it is not going to be that in future we'll be able to sort it this. So that will be very difficult, because the platform in which he's been campaigning in the last elections, in those areas where he's gotten support, is that you've been marginalized. Yeah, and that was the fight between him and the current president, Uhuru Kenyatta, between their supporters.
So what would have been the politically correct?
The deputy president has said there should be a win-win situation. What he is actually suggesting is that have the senators discuss, because when you say, when Raila Odinga concludes that the Senate has refused the amendments, that's not true. It's not true. At what stage do you can still bring amendments a day before the debate? So
even on the floor?
Even on the floor of the House, the Speaker can use standing order number 1 to allow for that amendment to be brought, or the chair of the committee concerned. So it doesn't mean that the amendments have been closed. They should, between the time when they disagreed on last week on Thursday up to today, they should have been able to sit down, listen to experts. We have economists within this country who can give you better
statisticians.
Statisticians.
Yes.
So that you can be able to look at how best can we be able to address these inequalities. Because the deputy president has said, sote yawezekana. It is possible for us to win and carry everybody on board. Why can't we have a situation where we listen to, like what Martin has said, reduce the amount on population, or add the amount on population plus the amount on land to make it, and then divide by 2. That gives you around 13% for both of them. And then you look at the margins, who is losing what and who is gaining what. And those margins might be just be very small within the acceptable margins of error. Once that is done, then everybody can be carried on forward.
All right.
Then some of those inequalities, you can still come back and say, even through the equalization fund, instead of the amount that has always been allocated in equalization fund to catch up with the rest of the country, why don't we increase the amount, not just for catch up, but for also to move forward?
All right. I want us to bring this conversation to a close, but I just like your final thoughts. Today, the senators are supposed to be voting on this particular formula. What do you think should guide them? What are some of the principles that they should observe? Let's leave outside influence aside. I know it is something that is really tricky to avoid, but if things were to happen the way they ought to, what should they consider before they cast their vote? Martin.
The country is bigger than all of us. You know, if you mess up this country, we all suffer. And you know, the mouth, because it talks, it's a better organ than the leg. That is a kind of reasoning that you will use. So you can't say all the the body organs are important. The head has its role, the mouth has its role, the eyes have their role, the legs have their role, and each one of them plays a unique role. That is the same way that the country is. You might not have sweet potatoes coming from Mukambani, but you have limestone, the cement that has built the entire country. The cement that has built most of this Nairobi comes from Mukambani. So you can't say that, you see, that is a dry area, so we don't need to put their money. But when you need the cement to be able to construct even those roads, you need it from those places which look marginalized. When you talk about Turkana, I've told you there is oil. And that oil can actually transform this economy in a big way. But you need to put up infrastructure which would allow us to exploit that oil, which would allow us. The next war in this country is going to be, in the world, is going to be fought over water. Turkana has huge aquifers. So we need to be futuristic. We must be able to put infrastructure which would allow us to get that water from Turkana without now even going to fight over the Nile. So we need to bring up those areas the same way we help these other places which are well off to go up, but we must also help the other ones which are marginalized. And you know, the country is still our country. We are all Kenyans, irrespective of where we come from.
At the end of the day, let's pursue equality. Let's pursue equity, not equality. I'd just like to get your final thoughts, Mheshimiwa.
Just on the same breath, you know, when you are, as a Kenyan, all of us are equal before the eyes of God. And all of us, there is no Kenyan who deserves more service than any other Kenyan. And at the same time, if resources are being brought maybe to Nairobi, it doesn't mean that when you are from Northeastern or you are from Rift Valley, you're not going to benefit from those resources, and vice versa. We need to develop this country equitably. Whether we are developing Mombasa, we're developing Endebess, let's look at the whole country equitably and make sure that our people get resources that they are meant to get. Because that is why people come into leadership. Once you are in leadership, you are supposed to be held accountable and responsible. You know, when Raila Odinga said they entered into a handshake with President Uhuru Kenyatta, it was to bring this country together. It did not mean you have to discriminate others. You must bring everybody on board. Although that is not what we are actually seeing. And when we talk about now even the revenue sharing issue, let's not look at that you want to gain politically by supporting a certain way of doing things. Let's look at it that the whole of Kenya should be able to benefit.
Okay, thank you so much. Mheshimiwa Dr. Robert Pokose, the Member of Parliament, Endebess constituency in Trans Nzoia County, and Martin Andati, a political analyst, for creating time to share your insights with us this morning as we were talking about the revenue allocation formula and its impacts on the country going forward. My name is Serfine Achieng and our sign language interpreter is Lucy Maura, of course assisted by Susan Thuku earlier on. We are now going to be paving way for the Swahili version of the program. Nancy Okware will take you through that. But from us and the entire team that made the Newscheck a success, have a lovely afternoon and of course enjoy the rest of your viewing.
When we moved from analog to digital, we took the opportunity to share our talanta. And the rise of local radio represented our voices mtaani. And now, in these difficult times, free educational shows are helping our children learn from home. And new ICT and educational platforms are going to make sure that no one is left behind.
Mawasiliano kwetu, nguvu kwako. The Communications Authority of Kenya, opening your world. The next episode of Kona.
Is Mommy sick?
She's very angry.
Angry?
She shouted at me.
I have to go.
But we're in the middle of training.
It's my kid, I need to go.
It's my husband. Knockout Otieno himself. The champion, in my house.
What is going on with you?
Isn't it obvious? My husband left me.
I'm not the one who had an affair.
On the next episode.
How about Juana?
Of course. Juana. Nobody who loves our daughters as much as she does. And she's a very honest woman. Let's put Juana down as the beneficiary.
So that's what's going on. I have to figure out a way to get to that computer.
What are you doing, Sophia?
El paraíso
In love with Ramon.
Hamjambo wa Kenya wenzangu. Mimi ni Mheshimiwa Mize. Ninalotaka kuambia ni kuwasihi ya kwamba corona iko. Na ili tupigane nayo na tuishinde. Ukikohoa, tafadhali kama una ile ya kujifunika ile tissue, weka mkono hapa. Kama ni chafya yako acho na itabakia pale pale. Kama ni kukohoa yako koholea hapo. Na nakwambia tukizingatia sheria na tuitii, hii corona tutaishinda na nchi yetu tutarudi kama kawaida.
The date for the FA Cup final is set, and so are we, as Arsenal and Chelsea face off again on the 1st of August at Wembley. The All London affair will be broadcast live and exclusive on KBC Channel 1 this Saturday from 7:30 p.m.
Cesar Azpilicueta again for Giroud. Oh, and it's found a way through.
Heads up. It is a showdown worth your wait.
Huyu nani baba?
Kwa taarifa yako.
You guys, leave me alone.
Huwa haraka.
Wanifanya mimi mpumbavu.
How many times must I tell you?
You've got to take responsibility of your actions. You can get out of here.
Unasemaje?
Umse stai kumona kwa ikeja.
Kolamuleti.
I'm the boss. Kila siku kila nikikukanya wewe usikii, waleta ukibadilisha.
Whatever you're selling, I'm not buying.
If I don't get my money today,
I am telling you.
Game is over.
People gonna say all kind of things about you.
Wait them on. Just shake up your
When your booty got show me now.
Baby, one time. Bossy baby, give me 2 times. Full 180. Crazy.
Trago y ella la botella.
Let's go. Ha. I needed some with some bop in it.
Mamacita, where you at? I've been trying to reach you.
Choro, 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 choro. Te pago, te pago, mo, te pago.
Katoto shepu awe, ayawe, ayawe.
Pequeña katoto, camini pequeña, pequeña katoto.
This Tuesday on KBC Channel 1.
If there was anything more I could do for Julia and this gym.
Everyone has their life to lead.
didn't show up for training.
Where is he?
Hustling somewhere, I suppose. You see what is happening? I warned you.
I can't afford to have him on my books right now.
According to the document, it appears that she is the owner.
What? So you mean my father never paid her?
No, we're not sure.
The secret is all in the coordination. You want me to help?
In love with Ramon.
We were blue water sailors, deep oceans, and the far islands. This is as far as we got. Not a recipe I recommend a young man follow. Sometimes, when you get to where you're supposed to be, it's too soon.
Still can't get my head around it. No wonder you're out here.
I'm right here.
When are you coming back?
I don't know.
Na mtazamaji, ni siku ya Jumanne tarehe 28 mwezi Julai mwaka 2020. Karibu sana kwenye tamrini ya Channel 1. Matumaini yangu yakiwa ni kwamba popote pale ulipo umzima. Kwenye taarifa zetu leo hii mtazamaji, tunazidi kukupasha kuhusiana na taarifa ambazo zinajiri pindi tu zinapojiri, na vilevile kwenye studio kuna wakati wa mahojiano ambapo tunaangazia mada ambazo zinawaathiri wananchi, hususan wakati huu ambapo taifa na ulimwengu kwa ujumla unakabiliana na janga la virusi vya corona. Na hivyo basi leo hii kwenye studio tutazidi kuangazia athari ambazo zimeshuhudiwa kutokana na virusi hivyo, hususan katika sekta mbalimbali. Na hivyo basi mojawapo ya zile sekta ambazo tutakuwa tunaangazia ni sekta ya elimu. Kumbuka ya kwamba elimu imeathirika humu nchini mwaka huu na ulimwenguni kwa ujumla. Na vilevile tutakuwa tunaangazia ile sekta ya uchukuzi. Na basi kwenye studio nitakuwa nikizungumza naye Kikechi Kombo, ambaye bali na kuwa mwandishi wa vitabu vilevile ni mshikadau katika sekta ya elimu. Na vilevile tutakuwa naye Richard Kanoru, ambaye vilevile ni mshikadau katika sekta ya uchukuzi humu nchini. Lakini kwanza kabisa mtazamaji, kabla ya kuingia kwenye mjadala huu, hebu tuanze kwa kupata shajara. Naam, karibu sana mtazamaji kwenye taarifa kamili. Naitwa Nancy Okware na mfasiri wa lugha ishara ni Susan Thuku. Na bila shaka mtazamaji, kama nilivyokuwa nimekutambuliza hapo awali, ni kwamba leo hii tutakuwa tunaangazia jinsi ambavyo virusi vya corona vinazidi kuathiri sekta mbalimbali. Na hivyo basi nitakuwa nikizungumza naye Kikechi Kombo, ambaye bila shaka ni mshikadau katika sekta ya elimu humu nchini. Tayari wageni wangu wako kwenye studio, na vilevile nitakuwa nazungumza naye Richard Kanoru, ambaye vilevile ni mshikadau katika sekta ya uchukuzi. Kumbuka ya kwamba sekta mbalimbali humu nchini zimeathirika kutokana na janga la virusi vya corona. Kwa sasa hivi hatima ya wanafunzi humu nchini haijulikani. Manake mwaka huu ni kwamba serikali iliagiza ya kwamba shule zisifunguliwe kutokana na ongezeko la maambukizi humu nchini. Lakini hapo jana alipokuwa akizungumza, akitoa hotuba yake kwa taifa, Rais Uhuru Kenyatta alisema ya kwamba amemtwika jukumu waziri wa elimu kuhakikisha kwamba hivi karibuni anaandaa mkutano na washikadau mbalimbali katika sekta hiyo ili waangazie ni mikakati ipi ambayo itakawekwa ili kuhakikisha kwamba sekta hiyo haiathiriki pakubwa. Kumbuka ya kwamba wanafunzi mbalimbali wamekuwa wakitumia mbinu mbalimbali kupata elimu kama vile kusoma kupitia katika mitandao, kupitia kwenye runinga, lakini changamoto zipo na tutakuwa tunazungumza kuhusiana na hizo changamoto. Manake wengine wale ambao wanaishi katika maeneo ya mashinani, wengine katika maeneo ya mabanda, unapata ya kwamba hawana ule uwezo wa kupata vile vifaa kama vile redio, simu za rununu ili kusoma kupitia katika mitandao, na hivyo basi kumaanisha ya kwamba kunalo kundi ambalo linanufaika, lakini kunalo kundi ambalo limesazwa wakati huu. Na hivyo basi mtazamaji, bali na kuzungumza kuhusiana na sekta ya elimu, tutakuwa tunazungumza kuhusiana na sekta ya usafiri na uchukuzi ambayo vile vile imeathirika pakubwa. Na hivyo basi mtazamaji, kwenye mitandao ya kijamii unaweza ukachangia mada hii. Kwenye Twitter utatupata @KBC Channel 1, @Nancy Okware, na bila shaka tupe maoni yako kuhusiana na pengine mapendekezo yako ni yepi katika kuhakikisha kwamba taifa hili linasonga mbele. Na hivyo basi tutakuwa tunasoma baadhi kwenye taarifa hizi. Na basi kabla ya kuelekea kule nyanjani kupata taarifa ambazo tumekuandalia, ningependa tu tuanze hapa kwenye studio, na pengine nikianza nawe Bwana Kikechi Kombo. Karibu sana kwenye studio zetu leo hii. Naam, kweli. Na bila shaka hapo jana Rais Uhuru Kenyatta alitoa hotuba yake na akagusia masuala mbalimbali na kutoa uamuzi mbalimbali. Ningependa tu kupata kauli yako kuhusiana na uamuzi wa kuongezwa kwa muda wa kafyu kwa siku 30 zaidi.
Naam, asante sana kwa kunipa mwaliko hii leo. Na jinsi rais alivyozungumzia na kwamba haya ni masuala ambayo yanaathiri taifa, na kwamba alikuwa anazingatia vile vigezo ambavyo lazima tuweze kuzingatia ama wananchi waweze kuzingatia ili kudhibiti hali hii ya mchamko la corona. Na kwamba alivyosema swala hilo la kafyu ni nzuri kwa sababu pata kwamba ni njia moja ya kuweza kudhibiti chamko hili. Na ikiwa Wakenya wataweza kuzingatia yale masharti ambayo yametolewa na Wizara ya Afya, pasi na shaka upata kwamba tutaweza kufanikiwa katika swala hili. Kwa hivyo upata kwamba ni swala nzuri ambalo aliweza kusema, japo kupata changamoto ambazo zipo labda katika sekta ya uchukuzi. Kwa hivyo hapo watu watabidi waweze kukadiria na waweze kuzingatia muda ambao wameweza kupewa, ili wakati wa kafyu unapofika wao wamefika tayari mahala ambapo watakuwa wamepangiwa kuweza kusafiri na kuweza kufika salama.
Naam, bila shaka ningependa vile vile kupata kauli yake Bwana Richard Kanoru, maana yake anafahamu ya kwamba sekta ya uchukuzi imeathirika pakubwa kutokana na maagizo ambayo yamekuwa yakitolewa kukabili janga la virusi vya corona. Na hapo jana ni kwamba muda wa kafyu ama pengine kafyu iliongezwa kwa siku zingine 30 zaidi. Je, kauli yako ni ipi kuhusiana na uamuzi huo, tukifahamu ya kwamba unahakikisha kwamba virusi vya corona vinapungua, manake watu wengi walikuwa na tangamana wakati wa usiku?
Asante sana Bi Nancy kwa kunialika kwenye huu mjadala. Na kusema ukweli, sisi kama sekta ya matatu tumeathirika pakubwa. Na hoja jana ya rais kusema kuwa muda wa kafyu umeongezwa kwa siku zingine 30 ni kitu tunaweza sema ni mwaliko mpya na mzuri. Lakini sisi tumeathirika kwamba kuwa kama gari zenye kubeba abiria zaidi ya 50 sasa ni kubeba idadi nusu. Na unapata kuwa kunayo misongamano mikubwa kwenye stage pale jioni hapa jijini Nairobi. Lakini hili swala sisi tunaona kwamba huenda likachagia kupunguza virusi hivi ama ugonjwa kuenea katika maeneo kadhaa. Sababu watu wote wakiweko kwenye gari pengine wapakiwe pale, huenda mtu mmoja akiwa na ugonjwa huenda akasabazia wengine. Hivyo basi kusema kuwa tumepunguzia, tunaona kuwa sekta ya matatu huenda tukachagia kupunguza hiyo idadi ya maradhi ya COVID-19. Kafyu kusema ni saa 3 kuongezeka, kuna wakati mwingine huwa kunayo misongamano ya magari hapa jijini Nairobi, na huenda ukapata kuwa watu wengine huwa wanachelewa. Huenda pengine dakika 30 zikapewa sababu hutaki kuacha watu jijini. Hiyo ni changamoto moja huwa inakuwepo. Hivyo basi tungesema pengine, sababu matatu sitaki kusema ni essential vile, lakini inafaa kupatiwa dakika 10-15 ili yule dereva anapoenda nyumbani wakiwa pamoja na kondakta wake waweze kufika nyumbani, na sio kusema lazima afukue amefika saa 3. Saa 3 dakika 10-15 itakuwa sawa sawa.
Na bila shaka manake wengi wanasema ya kwamba biashara zimeathirika kutokana na hii curfew, na bila shaka tutakuwa tunazungumzia kuhusu hizo athari ambazo zimeshuhudiwa. Lakini kwanza kabisa ningependa tu tuzidi kuchambua ile hotuba yake Rais Uhuru Kenyatta hapo jana na yale maagizo mbalimbali ambayo aliyatoa. Na Bwana Kikechi Kombo, bali na kuwa na hii curfew, ningependa tuzungumze kuhusiana na uamuzi mwingine ambao pengine Wakenya walikuwa wanatarajia. Manake unapoangalia katika mitandao ya kijamii ni kwamba wengi walikuwa wanasema ya kwamba itakuwa bora ikiwa taifa ama counties zitafungwa kwa mara nyingine, na vile vile wengine walikuwa wanatarajia kwamba ili uchumi uzidi kunawiri itakuwa bora kwamba rais asifunge taifa, na wote tunafahamu uamuzi ambao aliutoa hapo jana. Je, kwa kauli yako Bwana Kikechi Kombo, huu uamuzi ambao Wakenya pengine walikuwa wanatarajiwa kufungwa kwa maeneo, je, kauli yako ni ipi? Hiyo ndio njia bora zaidi ya kukabiliana na hili janga, kuhakikisha kwamba watu wasafiri?
Naam, na kwamba kulingana na swala la kutofunga, sababu watu kwamba mwanzo hasa azima ilikuwa nini? Ilikuwa ni kufunga zile kufunga zile county ili labda kuzipa zile county zingine namna ya kuweza kujiandaa, lakini wapata kwamba kuna swala la itikisadi ambalo pia lazima liweze kupiga hatua kwa sababu linaathiri mwananchi wa kawaida. Na kwa hivyo pata kwamba wanapofunga zile county wapata kwamba linaathiri vile vile labda ule mtaguzano na vile vile maandalizi ya county. Lakini wapata kwamba walipofungua sasa, hii ni nafasi nzuri ambapo county inapaswa sasa kujikita na iweze kujiandaa vizuri. Tunapoangalia kwa mfano kule yale majimbo ya Amerika, wapata kwamba kila jimbo kwamba linitoshelezi linajitosheleza katika masuala yake. Na kwamba wanapofungua hapa vile vile wanapatia hizi county zetu fursa ya kufanya nini, ya kuweza kujiandaa zaidi na kuweza kukabiliana na hili chamko la corona. Na kwamba wanapofanya hivyo basi hatua vile vile zipo, na kwamba taifa labda county ambayo itazidiwa napata kwamba taifa linaweza kuingilia pale kwa ujumla, ile national government, alafu ije iweze kusaidia. Kwa hivyo ni maandalizi bora ya county kuweza kujidhibiti na vile vile kuweza kujitosheleza katika masuala ya kukabiliana na majanga, na si janga tu la corona, labda kuna majanga mengine kama mafuriko na masuala yale mengine. Kwa hivyo inakuwa ni bora zaidi.
Na pengine Bwana Richard, tukisalia kwenye hilo swala kuhusiana na kujiandaa kwa county na lile jukumu ambalo county zimetwikwa kuhakikisha kwamba zinaweza kujikimu na vile vile kuwashughulikia wale wagonjwa ambao wanaambukizwa virusi vya corona katika maeneo yao. Na hapo jana Rais Uhuru Kenyatta alisema ya kwamba kufikia sasa takriban 70% ya county ziko tayari kukabiliana na hili janga. Je, unaona kwamba itakuwa ni vyema kabisa, maana una zile kaunti ambazo ziko kule mashinani na hivyo basi kunaweza kuwa na changamoto mbalimbali. Je, unaona kwamba itakuwa bora ikiwa tutaamini kwamba zile kaunti zitaweza kutekeleza ili jukumu la kukabiliana na janga kiasi hiki?
Kusema kweli hii ni kauli bora sana, sababu sasa hakuna ile unasema kuwa cost of doing business ama kutakuwa na ongezeko la bei. Kwa mfano ukiangalia wakati kulikuwa kumefungwa, huwezi toka Nairobi kuelekea Nakuru, kutoka Nairobi kwenda Nyeri ama Murang'a, ulikuwa unapata kuwa pesa za kusafiri zilikuwa juu. Wale walikuwa wanaleta chakula kutoka maeneo haya kuleta hapa jijini, watu walikuwa wanalipa pesa mingi sana. Lakini vile kulipofunguliwa pale jana ama kulipofunguliwa wiki 3 zilizoisha, hayo cost ya hizo imekuja chini. Vile vile sisi sasa tunaweza pengine hata kama mtu jamii yako iko Nairobi na ingine iko kule Kisumu, mnaweza wasiliana. Unaweza toka hapa asubuhi ufike Kisumu jioni, na ile ari ya kutaka kuonana imepunguzwa. Kwa hivyo kusema kuwa watu watatumia panya route kujaribu kutoroka ama kupenya ili wafike kule haitapatikana. Na hapo utapata kuwa iwapo mtu ni mgonjwa, ataona kweli mimi ni mgonjwa, siwezi kupelekea familia yetu mgonjwa pale. Hii naweza sema kuwa ni kauli mzuri sana na itasaidia hata kupunguza. Sababu sasa pale unajua Wakenya wakifungiwa Nancy kila kitu, Wakenya hujaribu kutafuta binu za kupenya kufika kule. Lakini kwa saa hii vile wamefunguliwa sasa, watakuwa huru kufanya kile wanafanya. Wakitaka kutoka hapa kusafiri kutoka Nairobi kwenda Nakuru, watakuwa naingia pale kwa wanaabiri matatu, wanafika kule. Mimi nitasema naweza ona kuwa ni wazo mzuri na pengine huenda ikachagia kupungua. Lakini kuna wale wanaosema kuwa pengine itaongezeka. Lakini vile mimi naona ni kuwa ukijua ni mgonjwa pengine utafika pale hospitalini. Ile inaofaa kusema na ni kuambiwa kuwa watu wasilipe iwapo wewe uko na corona. Ni watu wengi wako na hii ugonjwa, lakini haijabainika vizuri sana malipo ni vipi. Lakini kufungua kule naona kuwa huenda kukapunguza.
Na bila shaka manake kaunti zenyewe zimetwikwa lile jukumu la kuhakikisha kwamba zinapata takriban vitanda 300 vya kuwatenga wale wagonjwa wa virusi vya corona, na waziri wa afya alisema ya kwamba kaunti ni sharti ziwe tayari, manake ikiwa mgonjwa ataugua virusi vya corona kutoka kaunti nyingine, basi hataletwa katika kaunti ya Nairobi kwa matibabu. Bwana Kikechi Kombo, je, unaona kwamba kaunti zetu ziko tayari kwa sasa hivi ama zitaafikia kile kiwango ambacho kimewekwa?
Naam, unapoangalia kaunti zetu katika maandalizi, kuna zingine ambazo zimepiga hatua na bado kuna zingine ambazo hazijafika. Lakini unapata kwamba siku zinaposonga mbele, unapata kwamba wote wanajitahidi kwamba utafikia kile kiwango. Na unapata kwamba sasa kaunti inapopewa jukumu, unapata kwamba vile vile unaangalia swala labda la hela unapopata, na vile vile wanaomba ule ujuzi na labda vifaa vile kutoka kwa zile kaunti jirani. Unapata kwamba mwisho wataweza kufanikiwa. Lakini kwa sasa unapata kwamba pana pengo kubwa. Kuna kaunti ambazo zimepiga hatua ziko mbele na kuna zingine bado ambazo hazipo. Na vile vile kuna zingine labda ambazo zimeandaa majengo. Unaona kama kule Machakos wameandaa uwanja wa mchezo ambapo wanautumia. Kwa hivyo zile facilities kuna zingine bado, lakini unapata kwamba wanapiga hatua, natumai wataweza kukadiria alafu waweze kufikia ile percentage ambayo inahitajika kulingana na labda wale waathiriwa wanavyozidi kuongezeka.
Naam, na bila shaka ningependa tukisalia tu kwenye hotuba yake Rais Uhuru Kenyatta kwa taifa hapo jana, kuna hili swala ambalo unapotazama katika mitandao ya kijamii ni kwamba Wakenya wote wanazungumza kuhusu, na ni ule uamuzi wa kuzuia uuzaji wa vileo katika mikahawa. Manake hapo awali Wakenya walikuwa wameruhusiwa hususan katika mikahawa, lakini sasa hivi ni kwamba rais alitangaza hakuna kuuza vileo katika mikahawa. Bwana Richard, unaona ya kwamba kauli hii itasaidia pakubwa ama itakuwa ni vipi? Manake wengine wanasema ya kwamba hawawezi kukaa bila pombe, wengine wanasema ya kwamba itakuwa njia bora, manake wanapobugia vile vileo basi inawapa ile fursa ya kutangamana na hivyo basi kujihatarisha zaidi.
Mimi kwanza nimeona kwa mitandao pia hata wengine wamesema kuwa ni huyu seneta wa jiji la Nairobi amefanya watu wakafungiwa, lakini kusema ukweli watu pombe wakati ikifunguliwa kila mtu hakuna ile heshima. Kwanza tuanze hapo, sababu wengine huwa tunaigia pale, hakuna heshima, hakuna kufuata hii mikakati ya social distancing. Utaona huyu amelewa atafika kwa mwingine, pengine tunaambiwa kuwa hii inatokana kwa mate, utapata huyu anarushia wengine mate. Mimi naweza sema hilo ni jambo mzuri sana la kufuga hapo. Wengine watasema kuwa huenda kazi zikaisha, lakini hata ukiangalia ukweli, hata kama kazi itaisha, pombe inaathiri akili za binadamu kufanya lolote. Hiyo kwanza ni jambo, hata hilo lilikuwa la kwanza semekana kuwa hakuna kuuza pombe. Sababu pombe inapofunguliwa sio heshima tu, ni Nancy Kiswahili sometimes unajaribu kutafuta ile jina la kusema, inakosesha hiyo kuweka zile mikakati zinawekwa na Wizara ya Afya kama social distancing, kunawa mikono, pengine saa zingine huenda fahamu zikapotelea pale, ukakosa kunawa mikono, ukakosa kukumbuka kuwa lazima usisalimie mtu. So huenda hiyo vitu yote ikakuwa, lakini kufuga ni kuzuri sana. Na hiyo ukiangalia hata hii vitu nimesikia hapo mwenzangu Kombo amesema pale, misongamano pale kwenye hospitali wakati kumefuguka ni vizuri sana, sababu sio kuhakikisha ati ni eneo moja watu wataenda hospitali. Kwa mfano mimi nikitoka hapa Nairobi, nipate Nairobi kumejaa, kwetu Nyeri sio bali, huenda nikakibia pale nipate kuwa nitaigia kule. Na vile vile hii italeta mashindano kati ya county. Kuna wale wamezebea kazini, kuna wale wengine wataka kufanya. Ni vizuri vile watu, na rais alikuwa amesema kuwa sasa kazi ni wizara. Akasema vizuri waziri Mutahi Kaya alisema kuwa iwapo wewe umetoka Nyeri, hautaletwa hapa jijini Nairobi. Ukiwa wewe ni mtu ya Kakamega, hautaletwa hapa jijini Nairobi, utatibiwa pale kwenu. Hii itafungua wananchi pale mashinani waweze kuweka ari kwenye kaunti zao, zifugue ama ziweke mahospitali. Kwa hivyo hiyo ni jambo mwanzo, na hilo la pombe lifugwe, hata lifugwe kabisa. Watu wasikuwe na ile walikuwa wanasema inaitwa Kagwe special ati ni pombe unaenda kubugia pombe mbili na kula sausage mbili. hiyo ni wazo mzuri sana la kufuga pombe.
Naam, na bila shaka tutakuwa tunazidi kuzungumza kuhusiana na hiyo kauli hususan kupigwa marufuku kwa matumizi ya vileo humu nchini. Lakini kwa sasa hivi, mtazamaji, ningependa tuelekee katika eneo la Loresho ambapo mkutano maalum wa makundi ya usalama ukiongozwa naye Waziri wa Usalama wa Taifa Daktari Fred Matiang'i na vile Inspector Generali wa polisi unaendelea pale katika eneo la Loresho. Hivyo basi hebu tuvuke pale tupate taarifa kamili.
Judges and Magistrate, Ms. Anne Makori, Chairperson, Independent Police Oversight Authority, Ambassador Simon Modio, the European Union Ambassador, Mr. Ben Shamala, Country Director, International Justice Commission, Kenya, Ms. Jessica Reichman, Deputy Director, Lawyers Without Borders, all development partners, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I have opted to keep my mask. Sorry? Yes. Good afternoon, sorry. Good afternoon, yes. I've opted to keep my mask, Honorable Chief Justice, of course, as a measure, but also we are about to go to the Eid al-Adha, and usually before then, you're told you cannot shave. So if I remove the mask, my beard is all over. I cannot shave until after the Eid prayers, and I slaughter the goat, so excuse me. I take great pleasure in welcoming you all as we launch the guidelines on the decision to charge and our case management system. Thank you all for taking time to attend this launch today. It is always a privilege to congregate together with such faithful and dedicated stewards serving to create a more efficient and effective criminal justice system. Our gathering is testament to the values of cooperation, coordination, and collaboration that bind us together, and today rekindles and reaffirms this necessary bond. As Martin Luther King Jr. said, we are now faced with the fact that tomorrow is today. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. In this unfolding conundrum of life and history, there is such a thing as being too late. Procrastination is still the thief of time. Life often leaves us standing bare, naked, and dejected with a lost opportunity. As the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, we are taking advantage of every opportunity before us and embracing that fierce urgency of now in discharging our mandate for Kenyans. The ODPP is a critical link in the justice chain as the Constitution delegates immense authority to prosecutors. The reasoned exercise of prosecutorial discretion is essential to the fair, independent, and accountable administration of justice. The decision about whether to initiate charges, the charges to pursue, when to accept a negotiated plea, and what to advocate at sentencing are the most fundamental duties of prosecutors. We acknowledge that such authority must be accompanied by great responsibility. And in exercise of this authority, it is important that prosecutors follow processes and steps that ensure consistency, transparency, and accountability. When these processes are applied equally and fairly, the result is not only a more efficient and effective system, but also an increase in public confidence necessary in the administration of the criminal justice system. The decision to charge is the most significant decision a prosecutor makes in the handling of the criminal cases. The power to charge entails considerable discretion on the part of the prosecutor, and the decision must therefore be founded in law, serve the public interest, ingrain fair administration of justice, and avoid abuse of the legal processes. Over the past year, we made it among our top priority to go around the country through our All for Justice initiative. I had the pleasure and privilege of sitting down with Kenyans to listen and learn and understand their concerns in relation to prosecutions and the justice system. The two common questions that the Mwananchi from Lamu to Homa Bay, in the community social halls to the correction facilities, asked were, how do you decide whom to charge, and how do you make the decision to charge? These frequently asked questions affirmed our belief that the promise of our criminal justice system depends on how we make the decision to charge, and it really was about understanding our mission as the ODPP, which is to provide impartial, effective, and efficient prosecution services to the public. Citizens seemed to know that being at the heart of the criminal justice system, the prosecutor must earn their trust and faith, and that any decision they make must strictly follow the law and also safeguard their collective interests. That's why today we leverage on our experiences and the lessons learned from prosecuting crimes. We have developed these guidelines on the decision to charge. The guidelines document the steps to ensure fairness, consistency, transparency, and accountability in the decision-making process, and that they are applied equally and fairly to bolster public confidence in the administration of justice. The key features of the guideline is the two-stage test, which comprises the evidential and public interest test. Under the evidential test, prosecutors will have to ascertain the reliability, credibility, admissibility, sufficiency, and the strength of rebuttal evidence with a realistic prospect of a conviction. Under the public interest test, prosecutors will consider the culpability of the suspect, the impact or harm to the community or victim, the suspect's age at the time of the offense, and whether prosecution is a proportionate response. It is important to note that while coming up with these guidelines, even as we benchmarked with the best practices from other jurisdictions, we made sure to customize them to our own unique situation in Kenya. In addition to these guidelines, we have also developed more policies on the alternative to prosecutions, which include plea bargaining guidelines, diversion guidelines, deferred prosecution guidelines. We have also formulated other guidelines on delegated prosecutions, practice directions on delegation of prosecutorial powers, guidelines for the administration and management of the prosecution fund, traffic rules and guidelines. I'm confident that these policies and guidelines will bring uniformity, consistency.
Hizo ni picha za moja kwa moja kutoka katika eneo la Loresho, na anayezungumza hapo ni mkurugenzi wa mashtaka ya umma Nurdin Haji, ambaye leo hii ofisi yake inazindua mfumo mpya na vigezo vya kuhakikisha kwamba usajili wa kesi unafanyika kwa njia ya usawa, na vilevile kuhakikisha kwamba kila mmoja anapata haki kwa kuzingatia njia ya usawa, na vilevile mfumo huu unajulikana kama case management system. Na bila shaka mtazamaji, tutakuwa tunapata maelezo kamili kutoka kwa mwanahabari wetu ambaye anazidi kuifuatilia taarifa hiyo katika eneo hilo la Loresho. Na basi mtazamaji, nikirejea hapa kwenye studio, nilikuwa nazungumza naye Kikechi Kombo ambaye ni mshikadau katika sekta ya elimu, na vilevile tuko naye Richard Kanoru ambaye ni mshikadau katika sekta ya uchukuzi. Tunazungumza kuhusiana na athari za janga la virusi vya corona katika maeneo na sekta mbalimbali. Na kabla ya kwenda kupata taarifa hiyo, tulikuwa tunazungumza kuhusu matumizi ya vileo na uamuzi ambao Rais Uhuru Kenyatta aliutoa hapo jana. Na ningependa kupata kauli yako Bwana Kikechi Kombo kuhusiana na hili swala. Lakini kabla ya hapo kunaye, ningependa vile uzungumze kuhusiana na wale viongozi ambao wanatumika katika kuvunja maagizo. Manake pale kwenye mtandao wa Twitter kunaye mtazamaji kwa jina Wero Tempurion kutoka kaunti ya Pokot Magharibi, na anasema ya kwamba ni masikitiko makubwa kuwa maafisa wakuu wa serikali ndio wanaochangia wananchi kuvunja sheria za Wizara ya Afya. Mikutano au mikusanyiko ya kisiasa imefanya wananchi kudhani kuwa hata virusi vyenyewe havipo. Bwana Kikechi Kombo, kauli yako kuhusiana na matumizi ya vileo na vilevile wale wanasiasa na viongozi kutumika katika kuvunja maagizo.
Naam. Tunapoangalia swala la viongozi, upata kwamba kiongozi ni kielezo cha jamii. na upata kwamba anapaswa kuwa kielelezo kizuri katika jamii. Kwa hiyo upata kwamba ikiwa anakwenda kinyume cha kuleta ule mtazamo hasi katika yale masuala ambayo anapaswa kutekeleza, kwa hivyo pia inaathiri jamii kwa namna moja ama nyingine. Kwa hivyo ni vizuri viongozi kutovunja sheria, kwa sababu upata kwamba hao ndio tunawaangalia, sheria hii tutaizingatia vipi, sheria hii tutaiheshimu vipi, na upata kwamba ikiwa wao wataifanya kwa njia inayostahili, pasi na shaka vile vile wananchi wataiangazia vizuri. Kwa hivyo ni vizuri kuwa katika mstari wa mbele kutetea ile sheria. Na tunapokwenda katika labda sehemu yako ya pili kuhusu ile dhana ya kileo, na kwamba mimi si mnywaji wa pombe labda kwa bahati mbaya, kwa bahati nzuri, kwa hivyo pale sijaathiriwa kwa namna moja ama nyingine, lakini unapata kwamba swala hilo ni masuala ya staha ambayo inawaleta watu kwa pamoja na wanakuja kwa pamoja, na kwamba swala hili mtu labda anapofikia kile kiwango sasa leo upata kwamba anapoteza labda ule urazini wake kwa namna moja ama nyingine. Kwa hivyo hata vile vigezo ambavyo serikali imeweka vya kuzingatia kama ile nafasi ya social distance na nini, upata kwamba wanakuja wanasahau, na ndiposa wakasema sasa nafasi hii ipigwe marufuku labda kwa mwezi mmoja, alafu waangalie itakapokuepo, kwa sababu kileo kitakuepo, japo labda kwa namna moja ina athari labda uchumi, labda kodi pia inaathiriwa, kwa sababu pale kwamba pia serikali inafaidia kwa namna moja ama nyingine. Lakini pale kwamba hapa imeonelea kwamba aushi ya mja ndio muhimu zaidi kushinda nini kileo cha kileo ambacho. Kwa hivyo ni dhana nzuri ambayo imewekwa na labda itaweza kuchangia katika kupunguza chamko hili la maendelezo ya chamko la corona.
Na pengine kabla ya kupata taarifa nyingine kutoka kule viwanjani, ningependa kupata kauli yako Bwana Richard kwa kifupi kuhusiana na wale viongozi, manake kuna huyo mtazamaji arafa ambayo nimeisoma yake Were kutoka eneo la Pokot Magharibi, anazungumza kuhusiana na viongozi kutumika katika kuvunja maagizo. Je, kauli yako ni ipi kuhusiana na hili swala? Ni kwamba viongozi ambao wamo humu nchini si wa kiwango kinachostahili, ama tatizo hususan liko wapi katika uongozi? Manake kuna baadhi ya viongozi wanaofanya kazi bora, lakini kuna wale ambao wanafanya mambo ambayo yanawafanya wananchi vile vile wafanye mambo yasiyostahili.
Naam, asante kwa hilo swali Nancy. Katika hotuba yake rais jana alisema kuwa hakufai kuwa na mtu anaitwa mheshimiwa iwapo tunakabiliana na hili janga. Ukiangalia tagu hili swala lianze, kumekuwa na waheshimiwa I think 3 wamepatikana kwenye sehemu za burudani, kuanza kule Kayole, wengine Ruai, wengine hapa jijini Nairobi. Inafaa kuhakikishwa kuwa huu ni ugonjwa unaofaa unaweza kushika mtu yoyote ama kuambukizwa mtu yoyote. Na ukiangalia mtu kama kiongozi huyo mheshimiwa huwa anatagamana na watu wengi katika kila siku, sababu huyo ni mwakilishi wodi, mwakilishi bunge, mwakilishi senate na gavana. Iwapo atakuwa anajiachilia ama anakosa kuweka, vile mwenzangu amesema, social distance, kukosa kufuatilia ile mikakati imewekwa na wizara, huenda hii kachagia kusabaza huu ugonjwa. Inafaa iwapo utashikwa, si wenda kupigwa faini ya 15,000, inafaa uchukuliwe hatua maalum. Wakati ulikuwa kuna quarantine, ulikuwa unaona kila mtu hakuwa anakaribia pale, lakini pia wale wanaoshika doria ama wale wanao law enforcers pia wanafaa kuwa na utu. Mimi naweza kuwa kitu kimoja nilikuwa nafanya mimi. Unaenda kuchukulia chakula, kuchukua ama kununua kitu karibu na hizo sehemu za burudani, kuja msako, hata wewe ulikuwa hata hujabugia chochote, unashikwa pale. Wanafuata pia kabla yao kushika, wakutazame, wakuwe na kile kipima chao ako blue. Iwapo umepatikana uko pale, upelekwa korokoroni na upelekwe kotini. Lakini vile rais alisema kuwa hakuna mheshimiwa kwenye hii, inafaa izingatiwe ipasavyo.
Na asante sana, na bila shaka tuna mtazamaji ikiwa unajiunga nasi sasa hivi, tunazidi tu kuzungumza kuhusiana na athari ya janga la virusi vya corona katika sekta mbalimbali. Na baadhi tu ya masuala ambayo tunazungumzia ni kuhusu uamuzi ambao Rais Uhuru Kenyatta alitoa hapo jana baada ya kutoa taarifa kwa taifa. Na hivyo basi sasa hivi ningependa tu tupate pengine taarifa zaidi kuhusiana na kile ambacho wananchi wanasema, na ningependa tuelekee upande wa Pwani, tuungane na mwanahabari wetu Michael Mwandiga. Mwandiga, ikiwa unanipata, je, hebu tueleze, je, baada ya Rais Uhuru Kenyatta kutoa hiyo taarifa hapo jana, akitoa baadhi ya maagizo kama vile kuongezwa kwa curfew kwa siku 30 zaidi na vile vile kusitisha uuzaji wa vileo katika mikahawa. Je, wananchi wamepokea vipi tangazo hilo katika upande huo wa Pwani?
Naam, shukrani sana mwenzangu Nancy Okore. Tunakuja moja kwa moja kutoka katika kaunti ya Mombasa. Niko katika barabara ya Moi Avenue katika kaunti ya Mombasa ama katika mji huu wa Mombasa, na hapo jana Rais Uhuru Kenyatta alikuwa ameweza kutoa lile agizo ya kwamba mabaa ama maeneo ya pale ya burudani, ikiwa ni mabaa pamoja na maeneo pale kunauzwa vyakula, kwamba kusiweze kuuzwa pombe, na kwamba agizo hilo lilikuwa limewekwa hapo jana na kwamba litaendelea, na kilichosalia ni kwamba Wakenya waweze kuwa na mwelekeo hasa wakati tunapokumbwa na janga hili la COVID-19, ambapo kufikia sasa kuna visa ama tayari kumeweza kufanyika ama visa tayari ambavyo vimeweza kutajwa ama kuweza kuwekwa bayana na Wizara ya Afya ni visa vya kusikitisha, ikiwa sasa tumefikia 1279 ambavyo tayari zile test ama vile vipimo vimeweza kufanyika. Na hapa tayari niko na mwenyekiti wa ile kongamano zima la wale lasimamia wauzaji katika vile ama wauzaji wa vileo na wenye mabaa na maeneo ya vyakula na burudani hapa katika kaunti ya Mombasa. Niko na mwenyekiti ambaye ni Bwana Kabundu, kuweza kueleza tu majina yake kamili ni nani na agizo hili la rais wamelichukulia vipi na nini hasa wanaambia Wakenya. Karibu.
Habari zenu, jina yangu ni Patrick Kabundu. Mimi ndio chairman wa Bar Owners wote Mombasa, na bado niko deputy organizing secretary wa Bar Hotels and Liquor Traders Kenya nzima. Yangu naomba biashara ya bar ni biashara, a legal business, na naomba Rais na Minister Kagwe waite all stakeholders wa bar, watengeneza komiti kama ile ya kanisa, wakuja na regulations zile zitaisaidia bar waendelee na biashara zao. Katiba ile tunajua inasimamia mamlaka kwa Kenya, inasimamia kila mwananchi ana uhuru wa kufanya biashara zote, na katiba ndio hawa wakubwa wetu hapa katiba kuprotect katiba, na ndio hawa wakubwa wetu wanafanya sheria bila kuita stakeholders na kula kuinvolve public participation, ndio mwananchi wa Kenya apatiwe fair democracy ya kujitetea na aendelee kupata haki yake. Haki yetu ya bar imeumizwa. COVID imekuja kuua biashara ya bar kama ni illegal business, na tunaomba hawa stakeholders waitwe. Sisi komiti zote wa bar Kenya nzima tukuja na regulations kama vile kanisa ilikuja na regulations, na ndio watu wetu wengi employees wote wako nje, bar zimefungwa, landlords wanalipa rent, na sasa nataka sekretari wangu aendeleze na pale kumalizia.
Shukrani sana. Wewe ulikuwa ni mwenyekiti anajulikana kama Bwana Kabundu, na hapa niko na Bwana Kennedy Mumbo ambaye ni yule katibu. Aweze kueleza tu kwamba kufikia sasa kuna watu ambao tayari wameweza kupoteza ajira, na je, wao tayari wana mikakati gani ama wanalenga nini hapo mbeleni ili kuhakikisha kwamba gonjwa hili tumeweza kulidhibiti na pia vile vile watu kuweza kurejelea shughuli zao za kawaida na kujipatia mapato. Karibu.
Jina ni Kennedy Mumbo, na kwa hakika jambo hili, tangazo la rais, licha ya kuwa tunaliheshimu kwa sababu yeye ndio baba wa taifa, lakini vile vile tuna changamoto ambazo kwa hakika ni vigumu mno sisi kama wakaazi wa eneo hili la Mombasa na Kenya kwa jumla. Tunapata uzito kwa sababu kabla hatujakuwa wafanyi biashara, sisi ni wananchi. Sisi kabla hatujajitosa katika uwanja ulingo wa kufanya biashara, sisi tunastahili vile vile kuwajibika katika nyumba tunakoishi. Tunaikuta na uzito mwingi kulipokea asilimia kubwa agizo la rais kwamba baa zifungwe, huku sisi tukiwa kama wafanyikazi wa biashara zile, sisi tuna mikopo katika benki ambazo tuliwekeza nazo biashara zile zetu za baa. Na kwa hakika sisi wengine wanaishi ama kufanya biashara zao kwa nyumba ya kukodi ama kukodisha, kodi biashara, nyumba ya biashara na kukodi nyumba wanakoishi wao. Hivi sasa kila mfanyikazi wa baa au mwenye baa basi wako katika hali tata, hali ya kutojifahamu, na hali ambayo huenda ikafanya hata mwingine kujinyonga kwa sababu ni upweke mno. Sisi tumewekwa katika hali ambayo hatujifahamu kwa sababu biashara ambayo tunajua ni biashara hii ya mvinyo. Ukisema lifungwe ni sawa na kusema mtu afe, kwa sababu tunaheshimu ndio uamuzi wa rais na wizara husika la afya, lakini vile vile sisi ni binadamu, tunastahili kuwa tuna njia mbadala ya kupata lishe. Njia mbadala ile ni gani? Ukimtoa mtu pale umpeleke kwingine, umwelekezee. Lakini je, unamfungia biashara kisha humujamuelekeza popote, yule mtu umemuua. Tunaelewa na tunafahamu kwamba corona kwa hakika inaua. Tunaogopa corona vile vile, tunaogopa malaria inaua, lakini vile vile katika upeo sawa ikubalike kwamba njaa pia inaua. Njaa pia inaua. Ukosefu wa kupeleka lishe nyumbani pia huleta matata ama katika nyumba. Basi tungeomba kwa unyenyekevu kwa rais kwamba alifikirie yeye na kamati kwamba sisi tukiwa washikadau hapa chini, hapa Mombasa, hapa Pwani na Kenya kwa jumla, kwa hakika kidadisi sisi tumeajiri watu 4,000,000. Na hao leo tuseme watu 4,000,000 hawana kazi. Je, wana nini kama hawana kazi? Hawa watu wako katika upweke, ni vile tu hawana sauti ya kuyatetea. Hawamfikii rais kwa njia yote ila kumlilia kama baba wa rais wa taifa kwamba atuangalie angaa na jicho lingine tofauti la kiutu, nasi tupewe njia mbadala ya kufanya biashara. La sivyo tutaanza kuwa mateja hapa mtaani, kwa sababu sitakubali mimi katika familia nikose unga na huu bwana ana simu. Uhalifu itaendelea na hata risasi pia unaua. Basi hapa ni vitu vinne: malaria inaua, corona inaua, njaa inaua, na vile vile tutakapokuwa majambazi pia risasi itaua.
Naam, shukrani sana. Ndio hali halisi hiyo ilivyoweza kuelezea bayana kuhusiana na hali jinsi ilivyo na agizo ambalo liweza kutolewa na rais hapo jana, ambapo nilivyokuelezea hapo awali visa 279,612 tayari vipimo vimeweza kufanyika, na kuna wale ambao wameweza kupoteza maisha na kuna wale ambao tayari wanashughuliwa katika manyumba yao. Kilichosalia kwa sasa ni kila mtu kuweza kufuata zile sheria za afya na kuweza kuhakikisha kwamba gonjwa hili tunaweza kulidhibiti. Nitakuwa narudi na taarifa zingine zaidi mwenzangu Nancy Okware kutoka kaunti ya Mombasa. Mimi ni Michael Mwandiga.
Naam, shukrani sana mwanahabari wetu Michael Mwandiga. Tunapotamatisha tamrini, ningependa Bwana Richard, pengine kauli yako kuhusiana na yale ambao wale washikadau pale wamezungumza, na hususan kusema ya kwamba hawakuhusishwa katika uamuzi ambao umetolewa. Je, kauli yako ni ipi kuhusiana na hayo, na vile vile hapo mwisho utoe kauli yako ya mwisho kwenye mjadala huu?
Asante Madam Nancy kwa hayo. Nataka kwanza kusema wale walioko kule pwani napatikana kabisa wako na maneno yao ya kikamilifu, wanasema kuwa wahusishwe. Sisi nataka kusema sisi kama sekta ya uchukuzi, na mimi nikiwa katika Taisa, tulipewa kila association tulipatiwa lita kadhaa ya kugaia wenye matatu, na tukafanya hivyo ili tupigane na haya makali ya virusi hivi vya COVID-19. Vile pengine ningeweza kumshauri ni kuwa wao wafae kuwa pia na association yao, na huwa naona yao inaitwa PERAC. Wanafaa wahusishe washikadau wale ama wakubwa wao ili waseme wapeleke pale kwa wizara ya tourism ili yapatikane. Sisi kwenye sekta ya matatu sitaki kusema tumesahaulika. Sisi huwa tunatembea na serikali unyo kwa unyo ama hapa kwa hapa, na kila wiki huwa tunajadili masuala ya matatu. Kwa mfano hii ya kusema kuwa viti vimepunguzwa, hiyo tulishirikishwa ipasavyo, tukawa na wataalamu kutoka wizara ya afya wakatuelezea vile watu wanafaa kukaa pale social distances kwenye magari. Na diposa unaona gari ya idadi ya abiria 33 huwa inafaa inabeba 17. Iwapo kuna wawili watatu huwa wanaongeza hiyo idadi. Lakini tulisema kuwa iwapo utapatikana unafaa uchukuliwe hatua.
Naam, asante. Muda umekwisha, lakini nitamruhusu tu bwana pengine Kikechi tu kwa sekunde 30 hivi utoe kauli yako hususan kwa wanafunzi.
Naam, kwamba wanafunzi wanapokuwa pale nyumbani wakisubiri maelekezo ya wizara na serikali, vile vile wasisahau kwamba kuweza kusoma. Mimi nikiwa mwandishi wa vitabu, upata kwamba kuna vitabu vizuri ambavyo vinaweza kuwafaa pale vya kudurusu, kwa mfano kama kio cha KCSE, na vile vile waweze kusikiza vipindi vya lugha, kwa mfano KBC hapa bwana Mathias Momanyi ana kipindi Jumamosi cha saa 2 ambacho ni kipindi kizuri, unapata kwamba kinawafaa katika malengo. Vile vile kwenye runinga ya KBC na radio vile vile kuna vipindi vya lugha ambavyo vipindi kumradhi vya elimu ambavyo vinaweza kuwafaidi wanafunzi. Kwa hivyo ni muhimu wasiwe nyumbani, wazingatie zile ratiba na pasi na shaka wataweza kufaidika.
Na asante pia mtazamaji. Tumekuwa tukizungumza naye Kikechi Kombo ambaye ni mwandishi wa vitabu, na vile vile tumekuwa naye Richard Kanoru ambaye ni mshikadau katika sekta ya uchukuzi. Na basi kufikia hapo tunafika kwenye tamati ya tamrini ya Channel 1. Naitwa Nancy Okware, mfasiri wa lugha ishara ni Susan Thuku. Shukrani sana kwa wote waliofanikisha taarifa hizi. Tukutane tena hapo kesho.
Greetings, my viewer. My name is Pastor Walter Malongo Bulimu. I'm the senior pastor of the Friends International Center Church on Ngong Road. This morning, I would like to share with you from the book of Isaiah, chapter number 25, verse number 3 to 5. It is my prayer that you'll have hope as we continue during this time. And I want to talk about trusting in God during our time of distress. The Bible says in the book of Isaiah 25, verse 3 to 5, "Therefore shall the strong people glorify thee, the city of the treble nations shall fear thee. For thou hast been a strength to the poor, a strength to the needy in his distress, a refuge from the storm, a shadow from the heat, when the blast of the treble one is as a storm against the wall. Thou shalt bring down the noise of strangers as the heat in the dry place, even the heat with the shadow of a cloud. The branch of the treble ones shall be brought low." My dear viewer, I know many things are happening today. Just like the children of Israel, they were in distress. They were crying. They were weeping. Things were not working for them because of their captivity. They were living in captivity. People were attacking them. And God raises Isaiah, who gives them hope in the book of Isaiah 25. He says to them that the Lord will bring strength to the poor. The Lord will bring strength to the needy. A time like this, people are struggling with poverty. A time like this, people are struggling with need. A time like this, nations are going down. I want to speak to you this time, and I'm speaking to you, informing you that our God is able to bring joy even to the poor. Our God is able to bring even strength to the needy, because our God is here to minister to us. During the time of distress, my dear viewer, don't lose hope. Look at the Lord, who is able to give us hope, the Lord who is able to give us strength even the time of need. He says he will bring down the noise of the strangers. I know in our lives we have many noises of strangers, and this time we are dealing with a stranger in the nation. We are dealing with a stranger in the world, the stranger of coronavirus. God is saying he will bring down the noise of such strangers, and he will hit dry the place where this stranger is racing. And I want to speak this time, and speaking to you, I want to tell